Gonna tighten up now.
Mayor, council, your mics are live. You're live. Yep.
All right. Okay, well, let's get started with our discussion. Pronounce that Theabridge?
The Burge?
The Burge?
Yeah. Close.
I can get Michael. How about Michael?
Michael sounds good.
Michael, why don't you come on up and tell us all about what you're going to discuss tonight? And Patrick, do you have anything to start us off with, or do you?
Yes, Michael, you're familiar with the process, so you present before council the concept tonight, and they offer questions, you offer responses, and then we generate comments, and we turn around and send you the comments back 2 or 3 days after the meeting. So
Yeah.
it's all yours.
It's all yours.
Sounds good. Is the presentation, or I can click it? Yeah, whichever. Thank you. Evening, everybody. Thanks for you guys' time. We're excited to bring this to everyone. I think it's going to be a really exciting project for everyone to consider. It's part of trying to enact the downtown Indian Trail plan. I think that's really our main goal, is to try to enact as many goals of that plan that was adopted as possible as part of this project, and see how we can continue bringing that to life. So we're working with Joe, and come up in a minute and speak, but their goal here is to develop something that was mixed use, and that just fits really well into what the goal for this area is. With the buildings up to the street, a great walkable streetscape with street trees and street lights and things that are all envisioned as part of that downtown plan that we'll work with staff to integrate into the project. We're looking at something in the 3 to 4 story range, and there's a little bit of a breakdown of some potential square footages. Looking at a restaurant and retail and office on the ground floor, split in between the 2 buildings that we have shown, with kind of a central plaza that could have patio restaurant seating, or any other kind of additional entrance points for some of these businesses, really to just create that as a nice gateway to walk from wherever you're walking from in this area down into the development, with some kind of a little terminus there at the end, maybe a little pocket park, or just a seating or gathering area, or something that would just invite people to both use the space and then come and stay and sit a minute and then walk home or whatever. And then the top floors of either the top 2 or top 3 floors of the building, depending on the final program, would be apartment, for rent apartment units that would be market rate, and again, somewhere between 24 and 40 units, really just kind of depending on the size of the units, the bedroom count, a lot of things that would be more driven by market study than anything else. So it's just a little hard to say at an early stage. So we're still working through that process and trying to understand exactly what that ends up looking like. The stormwater detention for the project would be underground as of right now, just because of parking. We want to make sure there's enough parking for the restaurants to thrive, for the retail businesses to thrive, and to make sure that the renters, the apartments, have enough parking, enough for some guest parking and things of that nature. But we're trying to make sure that's all back to the rear of the buildings, and that's really not something that's visible, certainly from Indian Trail Road. And we'll work with staff to try to screen the parking from South Fork and Park Road with evergreens and other things of that nature that are already kind of called for in the UDO. Let me just go through a few other slides here just to talk through a few other points. I think you guys know where the site is, but it's just a little bit south of the larger, I think it's 40-acre development that's up Indian Trail Road from here, just down from the railroad track. And it's a good central location that's in the comp plan for downtown as this type of development, really. There's a couple different aerial views of the property. Again, this is a lot of the numbers that I just kind of talked through. We've been working with NCDOT already, in terms of the improvement to South Fork and Indian Trail. There's a planned roundabout there that we're trying to, work with them on. They'll have to work on that with them regarding right-of-way for that. I think that'll enhance the area. We're trying to create on-street parking to the extent practical on all 3 roads. Again, something we have to work through with NCDOT, but definitely a goal of the project to just further enhance, the ability for people to just quickly visit and, shop and eat and just enjoy the area. It's kind of just a repeat of the concept there. So then the architecture. So this is an example of one of a couple different things that we had looked at, and I'll just kind of go back and forth between there because, we kind of, we could see it going a couple different ways with the architecture. We know we want it to be very active along the street front, mix of glass and masonry and/or stone. There's a couple of different styles that could be pursued. We would kind of like to know some more of what's going on, up the street to some extent to just try to make sure that we're kind of, we're different, but that we're still working in the general theme of the area and that we're not, standing out as something that doesn't make sense. So that this, the brick building there is kind of more of a, a 4-story potential view of the, that could be the corner facing the traffic circle, with that little angled entry and things like that. That could be a potential vision for how a portion of the project would look, and just open to feedback and thoughts on different schemes and how that might be presented. They've already engaged an architect to start working with us on this and would provide something more site specific as we got into the actual zoning submission. But just kind of wanted to throw out a few different thoughts of where we might try to take it for feedback. That was really about it. Joe, did you want to come up and say anything else about the project and your goals for it and kind of what your thoughts were?
Hello. My name is Joe Satino, and I am the developer. On top of being a developer, up north, we just moved here about 7 months ago. We relocated down here to be close to our grandchildren. And first of all, we love it here. We like your town. We want to be a part of it. My family's background has primarily been in construction and the restaurant business. My wife is actually a restaurateur for about 35 or so years. We have a restaurant up in Connecticut currently that's still being operated by my nephew. We had that for a few years. And we want to try to come down here and bring some good, authentic Italian food. And I know there's quite a few nice restaurants around, but we like to incorporate on that and bring our own flair to the area. Is it?
Up the keyboard.
Oh, am I? I apologize for that. Excuse me. So upon moving here to the Charlotte area, I was fortunate enough to meet Connie Miller, and she's a realtor that I've been working very closely with. And I had asked her early on to try to locate a site for us to start a family business. And when we came upon this particular piece of land, we drove around the area, and we think that we do well here, and we think that the community would accept us and love what we bring to offer. I've got about 35 years in the construction industry. I've built hundreds of projects up north, so this is nothing new to us. And we're hoping that through this initial process, just based on the little bit that we were able to present to you tonight, that you'll be able to support us, understanding that moving forward, we know that you have a master plan that you want to adhere to, and we want to be a part of that. We are not set on any specific style. We're open to that. We want to be a part of whatever moves forward. We understand we're going to be early on. We're one of the first, if not the first, to be sort of a catalyst for future construction. But it's important for us to know that we're going to be welcomed and supported and encouraged to move forward and just sort of link arms and be successful in bringing forth a product that makes this council proud and our community proud. And we want to have a great working relationship to get to that end. As far as what was presented so far this morning or this evening, it's very preliminary, and there's not a whole lot of detail, but we wanted to try to present at least a picture of what we're trying to create. I've got a really good team of people behind us, And I think together, as long as that we have a good open rapport, we're able to work in conjunction with whatever your master plan is in terms of style, the size, the unit mix. You know, we have a vision to bring forth retail, residential component, as well as an office component. All that's to really be determined as we move forward and recognize what the market will bear. So, you know, we might think that, you know, 50% residential and 40% retail and 10% office. That might look good to us now. It might change as we move forward and we start to understand the market a little better. But no mistake, the key reason that I'm interested in this piece of land is to put a family-style Italian restaurant. And anything else that comes about will just be a bonus and a good use of the property. And so with that, I'm open to any questions. I don't know how much more I can really present to you tonight because it's so early on. To be quite honest with you, this is a really formal setting. I'm not used to this up north. We usually don't come before you until we have hard copy designs, a budget, a pro forma, a market study. And so this is pretty impressive, to say the least. But I'm open to any questions and whatever I can do to help.
The golden word in town is, it's white tablecloth.
White.
Yes.
My wife will like that.
Anybody questions?
I'm going to go back to, what was your name again, sir?
Joe Satino.
Joe Satino. Well, first off, thank you for thinking of Indian Trail to bring your business in this project. I do have a couple of questions or comments. This particular project, you have a 6,000 square foot restaurant proposed.
Yes.
What is the other, I guess that would be 10,000 square foot? Is that the retail?
Yes.
Okay. And then you also said that it would be between 24 and 40 apartments. Why apartments versus condominiums or townhomes?
I'm not adverse to that. That it'll all be a matter of what the market's really going to bear. Just for the purposes of an illustration, we chose to use apartments, not knowing what would be received here in terms of whether or not you would oppose one or the other. But the essence is that we want to have a residential component.
And I guess this might be more for Patrick and Todd. The Park Road, Indian Trail Road, and South Fork, they're all 2 lanes. On the Indian Trail Road, where are we at on the complete street? Is that a 2-lane with parking, or exactly what?
Yes, what you're looking at right now, we advise the client that it's going to remain 2-lane, but they're showing on-street parking. We shouldn't have any problem with that. As a matter of fact, I've asked the consultant to check with DOT and see if they could put more on South Fork Road too.
Put more parking?
Parking,
Okay.
on-street parking, where you see the island, and also probably 2 or 3 spaces right there on Park Road. But the number of parkings that they're showing there does comply with the UDO, so. What I like about the park, this development is the first in town to put underground storage, storm drainage system.
Is that consistent with the downtown project?
Yes,
Yeah,
and
that happens.
everything, as they mentioned, that the 3-story retail at the bottom and all that, that complies with the downtown master plan and the UDO so far. But definitely, they will be submitting, it's like he said, depending on the market. When they submit their application and their plans, we will see whether they're townhomes or apartment, because they're submitting based on something, So that's why I think they can't nail down whether it's apartment or townhomes or condominiums. So. But they are trying to match what we're asking for, which is the height and also retail at the bottom and shops and whatever. So to answer your questions, Indian Trail to remain 2-lane.
Same thing for South Fork?
Yeah, so far, unless the state comes up with something. But the only thing we know that there is going to be a roundabout. No widening or anything on South Fork yet. So it will remain 2 lanes.
And when we talked to Stan and Lee over there, they had zero thought of that widening at this time. I mean, who knows what happens in 20 years, but at this point, I mean, I guess on the townhome side, it would create challenges from a parking standpoint. I think take up more land with the townhomes. I think the apartments versus condos distinction is something totally up for discussion and, you know, can be something that we
That's right.
work out one way or the other. But the town, you know, just trying to incorporate the townhomes, especially above the restaurant and retail spaces, just from a lot of code standpoints and other things, just gets to be a little bit tricky on how that would function. But I think for rent or for sale, I think is definitely for discussion.
But this is the only, if I may, this is the only project we received right now in the uptown area that present retail and restaurants at the bottom and residential and office on top. So it'll be the first project in the uptown area that coming up with a product like that.
Is there any thought to widening Park Road if once that downtown project is a go?
It's not warranted to be widening because, I mean, the only thing we have in the back with Type R is the apartment complex. Other than that, it's a dead-end street. So we'll be, and the apartment complex should be using the main roadway, which is in the middle of the 47 acres, rather than using Park. So Park will be sort of like auxiliary streets out there to support any additional traffic. And also, as we know, that Type R is planning on making a cut from Park Road to South Fork. That's one of their commitment to the plan.
That was it for me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Satino.
Mike, any questions?
I was concerned about the complete street, but you've answered that.
Anything? Shirley? I kind of like Jerry's question. Jerry's question asked you about condos or townhomes, and the way downtown looks now, we have a lot of apartments, people talking about a lot of apartments and not hardly any ownership. And I kind of like that idea too. Now, I know you've got to do what's actually profitable for you or what's best for you, but also maybe work with the town. But I like what I hear when you say you want to work with the town and you're willing to sit down and talk. And that's basically what this is for. You said you don't usually come in and usually, well, the next step will be the planning board, then the next step you come here and it gets a little more.
Yeah.
See, but this is just for us to ask you some questions, kind of get an idea of what you guys want to do. And then we'll come back with questions for you. My biggest question is, and I've not heard, this is quite different to have you come in with a 6,000 square foot restaurant and then build around that. We hadn't had anybody do that yet,
Yeah.
but it sounds good. I like to eat, so.
All
you
right,
know,
well, that's
that-
good, that's good to hear.
You know, so, that's a good problem to have. You know, we'll come, the questions come, but how close are you guys to wanting to get started or do this? I mean, what's your timeline?
We're ready to go as soon as we can get all the approvals in place and get a better understanding of the market. As far as the restaurant goes, if it were just a restaurant, single-story building on a pad, we'd start construction tomorrow if we had the okay. But there's other elements here that are going to take a little bit of research in terms of getting a really good understanding of how it's going to perform, and be a little more difficult to answer that the way you probably like it answered, 2 months, 3 months. But I would say by time this process is completed, we'll certainly know exactly where we're going to be in terms of the product we're going to bring forward, and then it'll be a shovel in the ground as soon as we're ready to present for permitting. And so, not knowing exactly how long this process takes, but just foreseeing the near future, I would say 6 to 9 months, shovel in the ground.
Well, what'll take place is, and I know staff will work with you quite closely and on different aspects of your project. And then staff will work with, of course, the town, and we'll all get together and and work hopefully together. But,
Yeah, perfect.
Joe and Michael, thank you both.
appreciate
Is there
it.
anything, Michael, did you want to add anything to?
I was just going to say real briefly, just, the intent, at least right now, is to try to submit for the actual zoning application by the end of the month, just to give a little bit more specificity to that, timing of all that with traffic coordination and other things, will, to Joe's point, dictate when the shovel gets in the ground, but, we want to move it forward, right now. And I think a lot of the condo versus apartment discussion is definitely about the absorption rate of the condos versus the apartments and the sales price, and just to make sure that it's it's an active project, an active retail. Those have to, be able to be absorbed quickly by the market, to make sure that that retail and that restaurant and that office is all activated. And so, a lot of that will determine probably what direction that wants to go, I guess is the best answer we could give right now. But thanks.
And so I'll just add one thing to that. And so that there's nothing that would say that we wouldn't be willing to divide it up. If, hypothetically, there are 30 units of residential living, 15 and 15, or whatever percentage it would be. Primarily, I think my biggest concern would be that since we're going to occupy about 6,000 square feet of the restaurant, I'd like to have total control over the site. So if, let's say there were any number of problems that could occur when you have people living in the same building as your restaurant, there are certain things that could typically go on. I mean, whether it's somebody who lives directly above who's playing loud music when somebody's trying to have a nice meal. As a landlord, I'd be able to have control over that. Once it's sold to an owner, my control is limited. So for that standpoint, I would say that a percentage of anything that goes above the restaurant, I would most likely lean towards rental, where I'm the landlord. Anything on the other, above the other retail sites, condos would suit. I wouldn't have any issue with that.
Have you already chosen the house here?
I have.
Oh, have you already moved in?
It's in the process of being
I was
constructed.
going to say that might be the place you want to move into, is right above your restaurant, and that way you would control that. So.
That would control the noise, you would think, right?
Be around
Bet.
upstairs,
You get the rest whenever
Joe's up
you
there
go.
playing
That's right.
music again.
That's right. Well, guys, thank you.
But I
Thank you.
do like
Thank
the idea of you being the landlord as well,
Yeah, yeah.
especially above the restaurant. That makes
That's right.
makes
I think
sense.
it would limit some of the concerns that you as a council might have as well. No one's going to be stricter than the type of tenants I would let in there than myself. So, all right. Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming in, guys.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much. Have a good night.
All right, that,
Appreciate it.
the regular council meeting will start at 6:30, so that'll give us, what, 10 minutes to take a break?
Mayor, council, you're live.
Let's start our regular council meeting. Today is Tuesday, June 11th, 2019. If everybody would stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance If you'd all remain standing for a moment of silence. You may be seated. Brings us to agenda additions and deletions. Do we have any?
Yes, I do. I'd like to make an addition to 4D, new employee introductions, and 4E, Monroe Road widening. I'd also like to suggest a deletion, and that would be 10C, a resolution supporting ABC control.
Okay. Anyone else? Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
All in favor? Unanimous. That brings us to presentations. Plans for the new artificial turf field. Mr. Riley Fields, you're here with the Panthers? Or
I don't see Riley.
Okay, well, maybe he'll show up. Here we go. Okay, so anyway, I'll touch on that for just a second. Maybe he'll come later, but I'm almost positive this pertains to the grant that we received for $250,000, which was much appreciated. If someone maybe a little more knowledgeable, Patrick, or would you like to talk about it? Tell us a little bit about what it's about.
Yeah, when we started the application process, Riley really played a big role in this. We submitted the applications to him. He reviewed it. He gave us a couple hints here and there, what works and what doesn't work. He also directed us to look at some fields in North Carolina, to go out there and look at them. So he played a major role in this. We submitted that to the NFL in New York, and last month we heard from them. He was very kind. He met with us a couple times at the stadium. He also took us on a tour. So I'm pretty sure probably he'll show up tonight. Hopefully he'll be here tonight too, so we could just say thank you and share with him our excitement.
Very good. And that's a big addition to the parks. And just if you would, Patrick, tell us, what do you think the total cost of putting the artificial?
Yeah, right now total cost of $790. That's including everything except just the nets behind the goals and the new goals. And that's not a big ticket item. And probably fence on two sides, just to make sure that no one kid can get in there and start playing on the field without making Parks and Recs aware, or maybe they just need to lease the field. Now the field will accommodate football, soccer, and lacrosse. So the designer of the field will provide us with marking for standard football field and standard FIFA soccer field, not the lacrosse. Lacrosse, we could go ahead and do them ourselves based on tournaments. We are in design. Eagles Engineering, they've done the geotechnical, they've done the surveying, they're designing the storm drainage. The vendor will be able to put the product in 60 days. So we are targeting mid-October, because we do have tournaments in early November, and one of them is the North Carolina Special Olympics. We also have agencies reserved lacrosse tournaments in the spring too. So as they know about the product, we're getting more clients right now to participate and be out there in the field. So exciting news all the way.
Thank you, Patrick.
Yes.
And just to touch on, to say how much that I think the town appreciates what the Panthers have done. That's a huge contribution to the town, $250,000, and it's a big thank you to the Panthers. Thank you very much, and I hope we have a chance to thank them personally. Anybody like to add anything?
Well, I really like the comment made about the Special Olympics being able to utilize that field. You know, that's a big deal, and perhaps they'll return to Indian Trail year after year. So, good.
And last but not least, I'd like to thank staff for getting the grant. I mean, that's fabulous. I mean, that's a lot of hard work, and thank you for getting out there and getting $250,000 for the town. And I think we get spoiled because you guys are so good at what you do, and that's you've done it before and you've done it again, and I hope you do it again and again. But thank you very much, staff, for all you do. That brings us down to new business presentations. Jimmy John's Gourmet Sandwiches. Let's see how fast you can get up here, man.
If I had known this was an eating meeting, I would have bought some sandwiches, because
Well,
I
hey, listen,
smell
you
that
can come
pizza
back
over
in
there.
about an hour.
I think everyone smells that pizza over there. I'm Andre Powell. Good to meet everyone. Thanks for having me here today. Much like the developer, this is actually not something I've ever done before. This is the fourth Jimmy John's that I've opened, and never done anything like this before, so I appreciate you guys inviting us out to be here. So I don't know how much you guys know about Jimmy John's. Hopefully, all of you guys have come by and checked us out. We're over on Old Monroe Road. We're on the opposite end cap of the new Dunkin' Donuts that just opened up, right in front of Sun Valley Movie Theater. So we're really excited to be there. Just to tell you a little bit about Jimmy John's, what separates us from everyone else. We bake our bread fresh all day long, every day. If our bread ever hits the point of being 4 hours old, we sell it as day-old bread. We don't use it for sandwiches anymore. All of our meats are all natural, so we hand slice all of our meats all day, every day. No additives, no preservatives, no nitrates, fillers, GMOs, none of that. Our vegetables are all natural. Our managers actually get to the store at about 6 o'clock in the morning because they're hand slicing all of our lettuce, tomatoes, cucumbers, onions. Everything that's on that make line, we hand slice it ourselves. Because our meat doesn't have any additives or preservatives, it only lasts 36 hours. So once we slice it, we're not going to use it after 36 hours. So again, you know, we pride ourselves on our hand slicing everything and everything being natural, in addition to our delivery and our, I don't like to say freaky fast, but Jimmy John's uses that tagline, so I guess I'll use it too. So does anyone have any questions?
No questions.
No, but thank you for coming here, and thank
Yeah.
you for, bringing Jimmy John's here, and you are famous for being fast.
Yeah,
and
that's-
and the fast
that's
cars,
what they say.
You know, and good. I'm gonna give you credit for both fast and good. We've got a plaque here for you, and wish you a lot of luck in the future.
Thank you.
Hope you're here for many years.
Yes, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Next, we have Marco's Pizza, Steve and Christine Woodward. Come on up.
So we did read the sign that said no food allowed.
That doesn't mean a thing. That's okay. Yeah. Just ignore that sign.
Thank you.
We do have standards of how fast this should get to you, so I apologize if this is just slightly outside our minutes from sitting and waiting, but
That's okay.
it should be to you faster and hotter than what you might try. So everyone, maybe one slice each. We brought 3 pizzas, so please feel free to try. Very excited to be here, appreciate it. This is our first Marco's Pizza, one of many. Marco's, for those who don't know, we are the fastest growing delivery pizza chain in the country. We should be over 1,000 pizza chains. It was started by an Italian-American named Pat Giamarco up in the Toledo, Ohio area. And all the dough is made fresh every single day. All the ingredients are very, very specific to his standards of an Italian-American. The tomatoes are actually his tomatoes. They're grown specifically for us. So these aren't just tomatoes we can go get at a market. We have to have specific ones. About our store, so very excited. We have about 28 to 30 young men and women who have started with us, 6 of which this is their very first job. So we're very excited about that. 6, not the exact same 6, are from Indian Trail, so we're also very excited about that as well. So they are both local. They're either, about 26 of the 28 are either Monroe or Indian Trail, so we find that very exciting. So we hope you come see us. We're right next to Walmart. We're literally right next to Panera over on 74. And we just hope you enjoy our pizza. It's the best pizza you will ever find from a delivery pizza chain.
Thank you so much. What did you bring? What kind
So
of?
we've got a deluxe, because, we never know if someone's got gluten or whatever, but we've got a deluxe, which is kind of like a vegetarian with a little bit of meat. We've got your pepperoni magnifico, which has some lots of pepperoni on it, and I believe an all meat. And so the reason we brought that, we've actually watched how they're ordering around Indian Trail, and they seem to like the meat and the pepperoni a lot. So far, that's been key. But we do have vegetarian, we do have subs, and we do have salads and wings and everything you would expect.
And I think something else we'd like to share with you is that, one of the reasons why we decided to go down this path of why we opened Marco's Pizza. We happen to be parents of 4 boys, and 4 boys eat a lot, and number one thing they like to eat is pizza. And so we decided that as we expanded our business, one of the things we wanted to do is something that we'd be proud of, and we loved the location because of the fact of how many family homes there were here. So that was one of the key factors of why we selected this location versus other locations that were offered to us, is we wanted to make sure that what we were doing was in line with what our values were, along with the company that we chose to partner with. So we're so excited to be a part of this town. We think it's just a great opportunity. And we did a friends and family, and the welcoming of the community was crazy. The amount of, I mean, people were walking up, I have 5 kids, can we get free pizza for 5? We're like, we have 4, you can have as much as you want. So it was so nice, and the community's been extremely welcoming of us. So thank you so much for that. We really appreciate it.
Any questions?
Oh, I can testify because
Good.
my wife brought home, I believe, the garden.
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
that's my favorite.
She ate one piece and I ate the rest.
It's totally healthy. It's garden, right?
That's right.
It's totally fine.
I have one question. Is it eat in and take out, or is it more take out than eat in?
You can carry it out, and we don't have any seating. So
Okay, well,
carry out or
well, I
delivery.
remembered what was there before, and I didn't think it had seating there before. So.
Yeah, it's pretty small for seating.
So
We
it's
need about
takeout.
300 more square feet, but you can actually order on marcos.com or the app. If you're going to go shop, pick it up on the way home if you want it that way, or we'll deliver it to you as well.
Very good. Well, welcome to Indian Trail.
Thank you. We're happy to be here. And
Successful, and
thank you.
glad you're here.
How far is your delivery area?
So it's pretty wide. We can go almost to CPCC, I believe is the college. Is that the correct one, or FPCC?
Yes,
Right down to the south. All the way up Rogers Road. We can get all of Sun Valley Homes right out there to Potter Road. And then we can also stretch 74 to 45 all the way down. There's an apartment complex. I wish I knew which one it was, but that's like the end of our delivery area.
Is Idlewild Road on that?
Millgrove doesn't qualify.
Oh, I don't know that.
But you can pick it up on the way home. We'll have it ready for you, I promise.
Oh, meet you at the corner or something.
Exactly. Totally fair.
Good luck.
Thank
Thank
y'all.
you. Thank y'all.
And they can't eat it all. Please feel free to have
You know, I'm thinking, what are we gonna do with this pizza? You know, not that we want it, but it's almost a shame you can't put it somewhere and,
Dalton?
where you gonna put, Adam, where you,
Okay.
Adam, you are the man, always comes through. That brings us to Citizen of the Quarter. Aaliyah and Crystal, I know you, come on up. We all know you here, and you both do so much for the town, and, you know, Mayor Alvarez is, and let me go ahead, and this is a little late. Mayor Alvarez is not here tonight, if anybody hadn't noticed. And also Marcus is not here tonight. McIntyre, council member. Marcus they both are sick. So sorry that they're both not here. And we'll get through tonight without them. But anyway, Aaliyah, just give us about a minute or 2 minutes of some of the accomplishments and I apologize for not knowing them as well as Mayor Alvarez.
Okay, well, my name is Alea. I just graduated from Porter Ridge High School. I was a senior, so class of 2019.
Congratulations.
Over the past few years, my mom and I have thrown charity events for different nonprofit organizations around the area. Back in 2018, we did one for Bright Blessings. We actually held it here in the town hall. And then we were able to raise over $1,800 in donations, as well as over 166 toys for the kids living in homeless shelters. And then this year, we did a fundraiser for Cindy's Hope Chest, which is a nonprofit that helps with women who have breast cancer in their daily needs, and we were able to raise over $2,000 for them.
And that's just a few. I mean, you've done.
Oh, yeah, that's
you've
just a
you've
few.
done- But I don't know if we have all night, because
Oh, yeah.
you've done a lot. You've done a lot. And your mother's always a big help.
Those are just our two big ones.
I know you guys were instrumental in the Adopt-A-Cop, too.
Oh, yeah.
I
Did work
remember
with
seeing
Adopt-A-Cop,
you there,
yes.
along with Michelle, and a lot of good things that you do for the town, and it's much appreciated. I have a question. Do we have a plaque? I do?
Michael's not here.
I got two. Oh, they're down there. Okay, I'm sorry. Anyway, congratulations and thank you for being who you are. And thank you for having a child that's, not a child anymore, but a young lady that is such a wonderful and does such good things for the town. Thank you so much. Kristen.
Mr. Cohn?
Okay. Mr. Keith Adams is not here with Common Heart. Maybe we can do that the next meeting.
Yes, sir.
That brings us next to the new employee introductions. We have two new employees and two bright, smiley faces, and we're honored to have you here. And I'm glad you're with us. And I know you've got to be good at what you do, because I know there are a whole lot of people that applied for those positions, and you're at the top. So anyway, Patrick, you want to say a few words? Well, first of all, Abby Ball, stand up. Abby's our communication director. And then Brandy Deese is our planning director. And you know, I will say this, that Mike Parks did a wonderful job and for the time he was here. And I know you're going to do a fantastic job also. And also the same thing about Rox. I'm thrilled that you guys are here working with us and go make Indian Trail an even better town than it already is. And I think it's a pretty good place to live. Patrick, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I just like to say that it was a tough competition. We had, for both Abby and Brandy, we had about 372 applications. And Carrie done a wonderful job going over all of them. And her and I, we kept going back and forth, but I think there they are, they landed, and we're very happy. I think they will complement the team 100%.
Adam?
We're going to ask Abby and Brandy just to share with us, you know, for a few words, just a little background, where you come from, and
Well, thank you for having us here tonight. I'm from Ohio originally, Cleveland area, just south of Cleveland. I worked for a communications agency for about 11 years. It was all focused on government communications, whether it was a city, municipality, school district, something like that. So I was kind of on the other side of it for the last 11 years, and I'm very excited to be here on this side of it. I'm very excited to be here and ready to work with the team to make Indian Trail even better.
thank you.
Good evening, Council. Pleased to be here as well. I come from Pensacola, Florida, where I served as Assistant Planning Services Administrator there with the city. My original experience and my career started with the City of Laurinburg, so I have a total of 15 years municipal planning experience. 10 of those was with the City of Laurinburg. My husband and I are both born and raised in North Carolina, so we're excited about being back in our home state. And closer to family as well. So we have 2 daughters, aged 5 and 9, and they are super excited to be here. And just thankful for the opportunity to serve the citizens of Indian Trail. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody want to say? Anybody?
David Riley is here with the Panthers.
Okay. All right, I'd say welcome, welcome, welcome. I know you're, Abby, you haven't lived have you lived in the South before? No, okay, well, we're friendly. I mean, we're not saying you're not friendly up north, but we're friendly, and we're a bunch of fine folks. And Brady, what part of North Carolina are you from? Washington, isn't that? Okay, so I was gonna say east. Did you go to East Carolina by chance, or no? No, okay, all right, well, we'll welcome, and Patrick just told me that Riley, we've already said a bunch, where is Riley? Riley, we've already said a whole bunch of good things about you, so I don't know that we can say anything else good about you. But we're glad you're here, and we're gonna back up a little bit and have you come up and tell us about the artificial turf fields and let you know how much we appreciate what the Panthers have done for our town.
Sure. Well, first I would say my time management skills this evening, as well as my navigation skills, severely flawed. So I apologize for any inconvenience that I've caused the council. And Abby, just embrace the humidity. That's just embrace it. Yeah, on behalf of the Carolina Panthers and the National Football League Foundation and the Local Initiative Support Corporation, we're so pleased to announce that Indian Trail is one of this year's grant recipients for the NFL Grassroots Field Project. It's a very competitive process. It's a nationwide process. And so the fantastic work that Patrick and his team put into their application was unanimously approved by the NFL Foundation and LISC, and so I think kudos go to Patrick and his team for the fantastic work and the broader vision of what the complex is going to do for Indian Trail and the services that it's going to provide to the residents of the Indian Trail community and the broader Union County community. It's with great pleasure that we're pleased to be part of the project. We're looking forward to the upcoming ribbon ceremony based on the aggressive timeline that Patrick's put together. It's an exciting timeline, and knowing that that plan is going to, shovels are going into dirt, and it's going to become a reality very soon, so that it can get to work again, serving children and families in the community. And we could not be more pleased to be a small part of that effort.
Well, Riley, on behalf of the town of Indian Trail, we are thrilled.
It's a big deal.
It is a tremendous deal, and it's not often that we receive a grant of such importance and so nice. And the nice thing about that is that's going to be there for a long time.
Correct.
It's
a legacy project, and I think when you look at the bigger vision and the things that are coming in conjunction with that project, the hope is that it's a small catalyst and part of a broader growth pattern that's going to serve the community.
I got the opportunity last year to go down to Wofford, and a friend of mine got me an on-field pass to. I was standing right next to the players watching them practice down there, and that was a thrill, man. That was unreal. And the Panthers, people don't realize what the Panthers do or all the good things that you guys do in our community. I think there was something in the newspaper either today or yesterday.
Correct.
About all the good things that you guys do for the community, and I just can't tell you enough. Thank you for doing what you're doing, and anybody want to add anything to that, or?
Well, I'm curious, how many other communities in this area have received a grant?
Yeah, so in North and South Carolina, let's track this back maybe the past 15 years. We've probably had 8 successful grant applications coming out of our region, maybe as many as 60 to 70 over that time. And it's an intensive process, and I think again, why I think it's a big deal is because it is competitive, it's nationally competitive, and you need the right ingredients, you need the right stakeholders, local stakeholders to make the project a success. And I think that's all the more reason that we're really excited that this project's going to happen.
Thank you.
David, I just like to mention that Riley told us there will be a possibility that we could put the logo at 2 places on the field. So we're working on that, and that's part of our budget too. So that's within our budget. And the exciting part too is that in September, after they come back from London, the entire team, probably some of them will come in and share the grand opening with us, with the cheerleaders too, with some of the cheerleaders.
We're going to roll in hard. Yes, full force for that day. It's going to be exciting. So we're gonna bring.
And it's my understanding now y'all gonna bring the practice facility to this, Rock Hill, right, you're coming to Indian Trail.
Oh, there was a news flash that came out, I think, last Wednesday. I meant to send you that memo that, and that piece of business is actually going to go down to Rock Hill.
I understand that.
But
Hey,
we're all, it's still, we're regional by definition. And again, being able to partner with the town of Indian Trail for this project is meaningful for us, and look forward to working with Patrick and his team as the project comes to completion.
Okay, Riley, thank you for all you
Right.
do for us and everybody.
Thank you.
All the-
Thank you.
Thank
Riley,
Riley, we have a couple of plaques here. we'd
One-
like to give you.
One thing we wanted to do also, we delayed the letter to Mr. Tepper. We wanted council to hand it to you, and we're going to mail another one too, so if that's okay?
Perfectly fine. So are my instructions to hand deliver this to Mr. Tepper tomorrow? Because I'll do it.
That's what he's wanting. You want him to hand deliver it? Yes, that's what I like to do.
It's written.
Can Patrick come up? Is that
Sure.
Sure.
Did you read what's on the plaque?
Did I?
Oh, they're big friends, huh?
That brings us to public comments. No? Don't what I missed? Oh, excuse me. Oh, man. I'm sorry. We did the new, oh, it's all right, because we had to skip and go back up. Okay, I'm sorry. Next, we have the Monroe widening. Mr. Scott Cole, come up.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Council, for having us here tonight to talk about an update on the Monroe Road widening and to try to dispel some of the issues that have surrounded that project. With me, I've got David Wasserman. David is,
David, welcome. I didn't have your name on here. I apologize.
that's okay, I can introduce him.
There you go.
David's our Western Regional STIP Program Manager. So for our 10-year State Transportation Improvement Program, he programs basically the western part of the state. And I'm, of course, the division engineer here, so I represent your transportation system for a 5-county area that includes Union County. So I have a presentation tonight I'd like to kind of deliver to you, if we could do that.
You have a-
I'm sorry, I thought you had it. We emailed it to you.
I checked my emails and they didn't come in.
It's the middle one there, on the right. Those middle of those 3 files. Yeah, there you go, there. And Adam, do I just kind of, okay. Okay, sorry about that. Thank you, Adam. Okay. So specifically, the bigger project, of course, is U-4714. That's all of the Old Monroe Road widening. We're going to talk specifically about U-4714B, which is that portion of the project in the town of Indian Trail. So I'm going to review a little bit about the project history, talk about the reduced conflict intersections, formerly known as Super Street intersections. Going to talk about the issues that the town raised in a letter to me that was dated April 23rd of this year. And then we're going to talk about project status, and David's going to talk about funding decision and our path forward. So the project history, the project began, we started developing the project in 2013, and through a 3-year process, which was our environmental analysis portion and project development, we signed an environmental analysis document in summer of 2016, when we began final design the following fall, when we kind of buttoned up all the design elements. We updated our traffic operations analysis at the request of the towns along the corridor in March of last year. And in June of last year, we signed the FONSI. FONSI is an acronym, Finding of No Significant Impact. So that's basically a final approval of the environmental document. So we had proposed reduced conflict intersections along this corridor. Why? Because they reduce crashes, they reduce delay, we can use them to control speed, and they improve pedestrian safety and increase the number and frequency of pedestrian crossings. You know, we've reviewed these with most of you. I know we've got a few board members that may not have seen this, but left turns are generally our most unsafe movement, especially from the side street onto the main line. Where you have all these, especially the crossing conflict points in the middle. In a standard intersection, there are 16 of those crossing conflict points of the 32 conflict points, but in the reduced conflict intersection, there are a total of 14 conflict points, and only 2 of those are crossing conflict points. Again, the crossing conflict points are those that you experience that have the highest potential for injury and serious injury. So the reduced conflict intersection results in a major crash reduction, and this is something the department feels very passionate about, and something that we are responsible for. You know, when someone gets hurt on our roadways, we take it personally. And we are held responsible. The town doesn't jump up and say, hey, the town needs to do something about it. No, they say, hey, DOT needs to do something about this. And so we do take that personally. And we, you know, our families and our friends drive these roadways as well. In addition to the safety aspects from the RCI, in a conventional intersection, you have what we typically call an 8-phase signal, meaning that you have 2 phases for each through movement in each direction. So the through movements in each direction, and then you add the protected left movements in each direction, and before you know it, you've divided that signal cycle into so many pieces that very few, if any, of those movements have adequate green time. Whereas with the RCI, you limit that phasing. Basically, you divide the movements between the main intersection and the U-turn points so that you have much more time to serve not only the main line, but also the side street through movements with additional time. Moving on to pedestrian and bicycle safety, as I mentioned before, with all the conflict points of a standard intersection, with the way that we engineer and design the crossing for bicyclists and pedestrians, you have a greatly reduced number of conflict points for them, so it makes for a much safer crossing. In addition to that, we can signalize not only the main intersection, but the adjacent U-turn points. And for each one main intersection, we can have 3 crossing points, very safe crossing points. So, moving on to the project in question. So, you recall from our previous discussions that U4714B was divided into multiple segments and started at Trade Street in downtown Matthews, went through Matthews, Stallings, and Indian Trail. So you can see these segments here, and I'm sure you've seen in the news and in your discussions with Matthews, have heard that they have chosen to withdraw their timing, the timing of the AA project within the town of Matthews. They didn't have any funding in it themselves. But they have a lot of projects going on in and around Matthews, and so before we widened Old Monroe Road, John Street through Matthews, they wanted to see what happened with traffic once 74 was widened and the signals were taken out, once 485 was widened, so that they could preserve some of the character right in the center of their town. So that portion of the project has been delayed. The AB portion, the 485 interchange that you see here, that is actually included with the 485 construction. Okay, that 485 project is a design-build project that is under contract right now. And we're going to be doing a Meet the Design-Build Team public meeting later this month and kick off that 485 construction in July, actually. So that's going to be coming very soon. And so that interchange project, because it affected the interstate, it made sense to include it in that project, and so we did. The third segment is the AC segment, and that is the 485 to Morningside Meadow Drive. That's basically the town limits of where Stallings and Indian Trail meet. And then, of course, what we're here to mainly talk about tonight is the B segment, Morningside Meadow Lane to Wesley Chapel Stouts Road. So I know through the process that you all have been contacted by multiple residents and probably developers, business owners along the corridor, and we have worked with those folks through the issues that they've brought up. Mr. Killo, I think he was a former councilman and possibly mayor of Indian Trail. And Ms. Jones, I know she's been in contact with you folks. We've moved and relocated the road to accommodate them better. Moved U-turn bulbs. Mr. Killo, we removed one of the U-turn bulbs on his frontage. It was a little bit redundant, so we could do that. We moved one out in front of Ms. Jones' house. She actually owns the parcel next to her house, so it's still on the parcel next to her house, but at least it's not in front of her house. We've worked with Mr. Brewer, Brewer Henley. He owns multiple gas stations in and through Indian Trail and Stallings, and Dennis Moser, developer of the Stone Theaters and the surrounding property there. So we've worked closely with these folks to locate and relocate some of the elements of the design, and that's one of the beauties of this design, to preserve Mr. Killo's old home place, some residences, businesses, and future commercial properties. One of the other design changes that we made and that we've heard through the process was at Brandon Oaks Parkway. Everybody comes out of Brandon Oaks Parkway and turns left and goes toward Charlotte. And so we redesigned Brandon Oaks Parkway such that folks coming out of Brandon Oaks Parkway will have double left turns coming out of their neighborhood to immediately turn left onto Old Monroe Road. This is what we call a reverse RCI. Okay, so instead of lefts in, it allows for lefts out. Now you can't make a left directly into the subdivision there. You go past the main entrance down to a U-turn point, do a U-turn there, and come back in. That movement is a minor movement here. Most of the left-turning traffic coming from like Harris Teeter Shopping Center, Stone Theaters, that direction, turns left onto Mustang Drive to enter the Brandon Oaks neighborhood. So we have made that change as requested by the residents there, and to help accommodate some of the basic movements, help to better accommodate the predominant movements there. So regarding the letter that came from the town passed a bond in 2011 to accelerate the project. You objected in the letter to the lack of acceleration and perceived project delays. David's going to talk about that in more detail. The funding that you did put on the project initially did help us get it into the STIP and get the project started. We have not, since we originally programmed the project, The only delay that we have implemented is a recent delay of 1 year to construction. We went from 2021 construction to 2022 construction. And that time is actually needed to complete the right-of-way acquisition and relocate utilities. That has to be done before construction can begin. We've got about 175 parcels from 485 all the way through Stallings and Indian Trail to acquire, and then we've got to relocate the utilities, the poles, the gas lines, basically everything, so that the road can be rebuilt. Indian Trail was not funding projects in other towns. So Indian Trail's portion, the money that you committed is for the B portion, and that is strictly within the town of Indian Trail. That does not even touch another town. So that is not correct. We are not asking Indian Trail or not using Indian Trail's money in another town to be strictly on the B portion in the town of Indian Trail. Indian Trail portion is moved to the final phase in 2026. That is not correct either. We are moving forward. Our plan is to move forward with the Indian Trail portion and, as I said, construct in 2022 with the Stallings portion, so from 485 out. Construct those two pieces together. Improvements are not conventional. Well, yes, our reduced conflict intersections, they are not conventional, but the median is conventional, the additional lanes are conventional, and basically, we don't build 5-lane sections anymore. And so when you have the median, you've got to have a place, when you come out of a side street or a driveway, you've got to have a place to turn around, and that's what the RCI design basically provides for. And NCDOT's approval of Matthews delay. Yes, we did approve Matthews delay because our analysis was that most of the traffic is not in the town of Matthews, but outside of Matthews, outside of the 485 loop. And so we're preserving the piece. There's actually a piece outside of 485 that is in the town of Matthews, and we're moving forward with that piece as well as the Stallings piece to get residents from Indian Trail and beyond to and from 485 more quickly and efficiently. Oh, goodness. Let's see what I do. There we go. Okay, so additional issues, NCDOT's approval of Stallings change. So Stallings did request a change at Potters/Stallings Road, and we worked with them because they had a small area plan that they had developed in 2007. And we weren't aware of that plan when we started developing the project. In addition to that, they intend to have their town center along the route, right there at Stallings/Potter Road. We could accommodate the design change with the existing routes that they have already in place, and it will preserve expensive properties that we would have had to take all of, like the McDonald's / Citgo, I think it is, that's right there on the corner. It's one of the Brewer Henley properties, actually. So the performance of that intersection, we analyzed it, and it was comparable to what we were doing with the RCIs along the rest of the corridor, and we preserved the RCIs along the rest of the corridor in the town of Stallings as well. There are unanticipated project impacts to businesses. Well, when you widen a road, you basically take land to put the road on. And there are impacts to businesses and homes along the route. And that's kind of the nature of a public works project, is that you have to take some land on which to do the public works project, and widening of Old Monroe Road is no different. As I mentioned before, we have worked with a lot of the businesses and the commercial properties that are developing along the corridor to minimize those impacts. Increase of the project cost with no ascertainable benefit to Indian Trail. So the project cost has increased. David will tell you that most of our projects increase in cost as we get closer to the finish line, because we have a better idea. We can better estimate those costs as we finalize our designs. And so we have a more complete cost estimate, not only for the right-of-way, but also for the construction. Although our costs have increased, costs to the town of Indian Trail, the commitment that you made for $10 million has not increased. We are not asking more than the $10 million from Indian Trail. Expected prolonged congestion and its impact to residents. It does take a while, as you can tell, for these projects to develop. I know the town is working to develop projects. I know Todd has been working on a roundabout at Sardis Road and Sardis Church Road and Unionville Indian Trail. And it's no easy feat to get one of these projects done. And so you multiply that by 5 miles worth, and it is a monumental project. But there will be congestion during construction, and that is unavoidable. We will be, when we build the road, we will be limiting lane closures to nighttime lane closures to try to minimize some of those impacts, because we know that it's difficult during the daytime hours and all the traffic volume that's out there. Negative financial impacts as a result of adjustments, delays, and changes. Yes, the project cost has gone up once again, but again, the town, I understand, had a bond, but my understanding is that the town has not sold bonds yet. So it's not like you were holding, sold bonds and we're holding and paying interest on those bonds while we finalize the project. So again, there's no additional costs or impacts to costs from the town. Where we are with the project, talked about where, we completed all the environmental documents, and we've completed the design for the entire project, all those segments that we mentioned, and we are ready to begin right-of-way acquisition immediately. Well, we have completed design and ready to begin right-of-way acquisition. Once we get the right-of-way acquisition complete in about 18 months, we'll begin utility relocation immediately thereafter and followed with construction. So moving on to current funding, I'm going to switch over to David.
Well, good evening. I'm David Wasserman. I'm from the STIP unit in Raleigh, and basically my job is to take the projects that you all have to work with the MPO, CRTPO, Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, and Scott's Division 10. We take those projects. They are evaluated through a prioritization process, or they come selected from the MPO, and then we apply the funding and the schedules and develop, and the results ultimately end up in the STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program. And so I'm going to speak on this project from a funding perspective. So as Scott mentioned, the AA section, which is up in Matthews, they agreed to look at moving the right-of-way back to 2025 and construction in 27. Scott talked to you about ABs under construction. AC and B section, again, the B section is here in Indian Trail. The current schedule, as Scott just mentioned, is in 19 for right-of-way with construction in 22. However, we did receive your letter recently by Scott that says you'd like to withdraw the $10 million allocated to this project. Fortunately, that complicates the issue because we don't have $10 million to plug that hole, and I'll talk about that here in a second. So just a little bit from the project history perspective, prior to the 2016-2025 STIP, the State Transportation Improvement Program, the B section was unfunded. In other words, it was in the STIP, but basically didn't have any money to it. So in 2016, or it was actually 2015 when it was released, you all working with the MPO came to us and said, you know what, we want to put the $10 million, give you guys the $10 million contribution, and that money went towards right-of-way acquisition in 2022. At the time, you can see the cost of the project was about $31 million. But you note that construction was not funded at the time. It was just looking purely at right-of-way acquisition. And real quickly, I will speak the STBG-DA funds. Those essentially are funds that go to this Charlotte Regional Transportation Planning Organization, that regional transportation body here that works with DOT on making transportation planning decisions. So they are allocated a set amount of money each year, and they contributed funds towards about $21 million in funds towards right-of-way acquisition. So fast forward 2 years, the cost has increased as we've learned a lot about the project. But you can see we have accelerated right-of-way acquisition to 2019. And this point, we've also added construction as well. And so here, construction was initially planned for 2021. But again, the total funding was from essentially the Charlotte CRTPO's funding pot, along with your $10 million contribution. So then what the MPO said is we'd like to submit this project through the State Transportation Project Prioritization Process, known as the STI prioritization process, where projects are all evaluated based on a combination of quantitative data, such as congestion, safety, along with local input. So the MPO provide and the division provide local input priorities or ranking of a project to DOT, and we evaluate these projects all across the state. We're talking of neighborhoods, about 1,200 highway projects all across the state. And so this project scored really well. It was the highest project for this area in what's known as the division needs bucket. And so being that it scored really well, essentially that meant that we could use the state prioritization funds, the STI funds, and not have to use CRTP, the MPO's dollars. So that was removed from the project. But however, we still had your $10 million local contribution. As you can see, that the cost is still stayed about the same. So at this point, in working with Scott and his folks, we also agreed to shift construction back a year to make sure that they have adequate time to acquire all the land needed for the project, along with relocate the utilities. Scott mentioned there's a lot of utility conflicts along this corridor. So that's one of the reasons for the delay. But at the end result, whether you begin construction in 2021 or 22, the completion date of the project is roughly going to be the same, just a matter of when you actually officially begin construction. And I say that due to the utility conflicts that often push back construction. So really, what's next? We also have a policy in place with the STI process, and it just went into effect with this latest round, where anytime a project that has a local contribution, whenever that money is withdrawn, we flag it, we review it, because it's a major issue for us. And so we're working with the MPO on how to fill that $10 million gap. And we presented them a couple different options. The first was, basically you pull $10 million out, let's look at finding $10 million from another project. However, we just can't pull $10 million from the air. That if it comes from another project, that likely means we have to delay that other project. And that could be a locally selected project through that pot that goes through the MPO, or it can be a project that goes through the prioritization process, but it's got to be within this area. Or the other option that we presented to the MPO is, we can delay this project, the Old Monroe segment within Indian Trail, essentially back 6 years to 26 for right-of-way and construction in 2028, which means it has to go back through the prioritization process and be rescored. It will likely continue to score well due to the traffic and safety issues out there, but there is always a chance that it could fall out based on other higher priority needs in the area. So a third option is what we're here to really talk about tonight is the option to recommit those $10 million that you initially agreed to commit for the project. As Scott mentioned, if that is the case, right-of-way access will begin here in the coming months. Construction will be in 2022. And then as a bonus, the state would give you back $5 million in what's known as bonus allocation funds to be spent on another project within your area. And so that project within 5 years once construction has begun. However, the one catch with all this is we need a decision in the near future because we are producing our final 2020-2029 State Transportation Improvement Program here in a couple months. And we need to know essentially by the end of this month if we're going to be including that $10 million contribution. If not, essentially we're going to defer to the MPO and how they'd like to proceed. And based on conversations with their staff, it's looking like we'd be looking at likely a 6-year delay for this project. So unfortunately, we just can't pull the $10 million out of the air and substitute it for that local contribution. So we are left with some tough choices. So that's all I have. Scott and I will be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Who wants to start? Go ahead.
start. What the heck? Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for coming before council in town tonight to speak to us about this project. One of the questions that I had, let me get to that page, was the breakdown of section AA, AB, ACB. AA is delayed. That's the Matthews side on the other side of 485. How much is that project, how much is funded right now for that section of that project?
So that project is in, like, I said, 25 for right-of-way, and roughly that's roughly about $21-22 million right now for right-of-way, and then construction, you have to give me a minute here, do some math. I'm going to say roughly about $20 million or so for construction.
20 million, 21 million for right-of-way and 20 million for construction?
Rough numbers.
Okay, so about 40 million-ish.
Sure.
The question is, that money was in the present STIP, the present funding, but they've delayed it to 2026. So where did those dollars go?
A lot of those dollars were essentially the MPO's dollars. They basically, they've decided to, they're working on a project selection process where they're allocating those to other projects in the area. Any of the state dollars on that project, they've been essentially used up in cost increases. We've had many cost increases over the last year for projects all across the state. Just to give you an idea, over the last 6 months, or actually less than, roughly the last 6 months, $900 million or so in cost increases all across the state. And so in this area, we have had projects with substantial cost increases as well. So we've had to allocate those funds to deal with those cost increases.
So did I hear 20 million was returned back to the MPO?
It wasn't returned back. It was just the money was just shifted. So essentially, if we had money in the first couple of years of the program, and so they had funding in 19, 20, 22, 23, that money has been shifted back for the AA section, and they're filling those funds with other projects in the area that they've selected.
And who has selected those? Are those projects already been selected?
Yeah, they're working their way through the MPO, yes.
So is there a possibility that Monroe Road, Section B, that some of that money could be used for Section B? If CARTPO, the MPO, deemed that was acceptable?
That is up to the MPO. At this point, they have not given any indication that they're willing, that's something they want to do. It was one of the options we presented, essentially find $10 million, and that could be from a locally selected project. But again, they've allocated those funds to other projects in the area. They're in the process of allocating those funds to other projects in the area.
Do you know when a final decision by MPO, by CARTPO, for that allocation has to be,
I believe they're working on it. They're talking about it this month, and then I think they're making the decision here in July. That's my understanding. We could get confirmation, but I believe that's what the plan is.
So they have till July to decide where to use that money, but we have till the end of June, as far as CARTPO goes, to decide where we're going to get the funds.
Correct. They are very simple. Yes, just because we need to work on finalizing the state transportation improvement program.
Excuse me, if I may. Another question I have is that I received the CARTPO agenda today, and I was reading through it regarding the STBG funds exchange, and that's with those CMAQ dollars that are becoming available. Is there a possibility that any of that money could be swapped and benefit Section B of Monroe Road?
That's the funding swap you're referring to is for a specific project that different types of federal funds are being swapped so they can be utilized in the best place available. So for example, that funding swap that you're referring to is specifically dealing with the I-77 Hard Shoulders project you may have heard about. And so they are just, you can only use certain CMAQ funds on certain types of projects. And so the state is working with the MPO on applying those funds where they can best be utilized based on the federal restrictions.
But it's not limited to that, if I understand correctly. That's
See-
just been a recommendation?
CMAQ funds could not be used for this Old Monroe, the Old Monroe Road widening project.
But they could be transferred to another project, and those funds could possibly go to Monroe Road.
Those CMAQ fund, I mean, that is a specific funding swap that is being worked out for for the I-77 Hard Shoulders project. I don't think there's really any flexibility there with moving some of the DA dollars or CMAQ funds for this project.
I think that's part of the frustration is trying to figure out where these funds are available and where they can be applied. And unfortunately, I'm really new to CARTPO. Well, I've been there 18 months, but I'm learning quickly some of these buckets of money. I'm at Indian Trails at a disadvantage because we don't know what I call the shell game. It's not necessarily a shell game, but here's some money, you can apply it, or we can swap it with this until we're late into the game. And I personally feel like we've written letters of concern. Now we're here in June. We've got to make a decision by June, and I feel like we're pushed against the wall on this. In good faith, we did a bond, and the bond expired. And then, also in good faith with DOT, hoping to get some design concessions, we extended that bond. And it's very frustrating, at least for me personally, to know that we need to put a $10 million deposit on a project that's still being delayed. And I understand you say, well, it shouldn't be delayed out past 2024, it should be open, I believe, 2024. But if a recession comes next year and you've got our $10 million and the road becomes, we've got a funding shortage, it's going to be pushed back yet again. These things are concerning for the guy that's putting in money into the project.
So I understand that. Understand that the only delay that we've had so far since we initially programmed this project in 2016 has been 1 year, from 21 to 22 for construction. Yes, as David mentioned, we've got 1,200 projects roughly statewide. We're going to hold the schedule to the maximum extent possible of a project that a town has committed funds for, because we want to honor that commitment as well. We've done all we could to hold our schedule to the maximum extent possible, and we'll continue to do that. We have some flexibility with the other projects. But, if we have your commitment, we'll also commit to do our best to hold that schedule as tightly as we can.
But you said you do your best, and I'm sure you said that from the very beginning, you do your best.
Mm-hmm.
I think some of the questions that I have, one of them is why Indian Trail? Why is it necessary that Indian Trail give $10 million when Stallings and Matthews didn't contribute like Indian Trail did? And the bond was done, and I've been on the council longer than anybody else. I've been here almost 8 years, and it was done before I came, but it was understood that the $10 million would speed up the process, that we'd get this sped up, that, maybe 2016 or so, we'd get a road out there. It didn't happen, so our $10 million went towards good faith and the DOT saying, we're going to speed this process up. What happened to the fact that it was if I'm not mistaken, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was the number 2 road in the state at that time, I think, listed as need in getting widened. It was very important. It was congested, and then, no offense, politics get involved, and then all of a sudden, we get kicked out of the hopper, and it goes back in again, and we're not number 2 anymore. And, you know, it's like Jerry says, it's kind of like playing a shell game, but we are responsible for taxpayers' money. And listen, I've been a big proponent of DOT. You guys are, do a heck of a job. But it kind of feels like that and I'm just saying, it feels like we've got the runaround. We're paying something, or we're the only contributors to this road. And we asked that it be a 4-lane. Did we get a 4-lane? No, we didn't get a 4-lane. But that's okay. We're still putting in our $10 million. But the majority of the people wanted a 4-lane. So we bypassed that part of it. So what happened to just, why don't we just look at how bad that road, go get on that road at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and sit in traffic for an hour? Well, we all know that road needs to be, what needs to be done with it. Why not just do it? Why do we have to go through all this mumbo jumbo? And again, to get something that needs to be done. And, you know, let's face it, touch on it again. We thought we thought that $10 million was going to speed up the process. Think if you, Scott, if you went to go buy a house and they said, listen, I'm going to buy this house, but I tell you what, if you give me, the contractor says, if you can give me so much money up front, we'll get that house built in a lot quicker time. And then it doesn't get built. It doesn't get done. It doesn't get done. It gets done. And no matter, you can compare that to a lot of different things. You're not going to be real happy about it. And neither are the residents of Indian Trail are not real happy about it. And
I do understand that. I do understand that. But do understand that we have a process, federal law, state law, that we have to go through before we take people's land and build a road. Okay? It is a lengthy process, granted. We're doing what we can to accelerate it. We did not take your money and say, to give me your $10 million and we'll run with it, right? You still have your $10 million. We haven't taken a dime, and you haven't been charged a dime of interest at this point.
we hadn't done anything either, but that's okay.
Well, we are ready to do something.
Right.
And
right.
now the rug gets pulled out from under us, okay? And when a locality commits $10 million and then says, now that it's time for us to spend our money, we're not going to spend it. We're gonna uncommit that money. Then the department, we're stuck with saying, we don't have the authority to go pull from a project through another town. Nor is it good business practice to say, okay, Indian Trail, that's fine, don't worry about it. We'll fill your money with somebody else's project and go build it. What does that tell all the other municipalities that have committed to projects across the state? That their money doesn't count and they can pull it out anytime.
Well, that's true. It also goes back to, we'll speed the process up if you give us if you're going to give us $10 million. So, I mean, we can go in that circle round and around and around and around. You said something interesting a while ago when you flag money when it's withdrawn, but did you speed it up when we said we were going to give you the $10 million? How did that expedite things? It didn't. It went backwards.
Well, I'd actually say the opposite. It actually went forward, and it went forward quite a bit. If you recall, before the $10 million was committed, this section within Indian Trail was unfunded. And now all of a sudden it's committed. It moves up to, I believe it was right-of-way was in 22 at that point. And then 2 years later, the project's moved up for right-of-way acquisition even further to 19 because of that $10 million commitment. And then we funded construction, or the MPO decided to put their money on construction. And then again, realized the only delay has been shifting construction back 1 year. But between those two cycles, the end result would still be the same. The opening to traffic date would still be the same. It's just a matter of physically when do you begin construction. So we have accelerated this project several years because of that $10 million commitment.
Last question I'll ask is okay, so Indian Trail gave you $10 million, and I mean no offense to this question, or to the town, or to the people of Indian Trail, but were they just gullible? Were they just gullible to give you $10 million? Stallings didn't give you anything. Matthews didn't give you anything.
So-
And I understand, I know what you're gonna tell me, but this project wasn't funded and.
No, NCDOT did not go to the people of Indian Trail and say, please approve this bond for $10 million, right?
They didn't say that, but they said we'd speed it up. We'll
Right.
get you,
So-
you won't have to sit in traffic as long
Right.
if you get that $10 million.
So the town could have taken their $10 million and built their own project, right? On DOT's facility, we would have approved a project. But understand, this is now a $60 to $80 million project, so you would have built 3/4 of a mile. Okay, well, that's going to get you from one place in Indian Trail to another place in Indian Trail, but not going to get you to 485. So that's where your money was leveraging the bigger pots of money and going to allow us to move forward with a bigger project.
That still doesn't answer why the other municipalities are getting their job done with no money. I mean, that doesn't answer that. That gotta leave you scratching your head a little bit.
I
You know,
understand.
that part is, you know, and that's what we don't, so, anyway, I'm lost for words.
I will say, I mean, I certainly understand where you're coming from that question. Just from a historical perspective, those other sections were funded prior to the $10 million contribution. So that those projects, those sections were moving ahead. And then this section, Indian Trail, was not. And so the jump starter for the Indian Trail section was your $10 million.
So, a question or a comment. After one of the CARPO meetings, I spoke with Van. One of the things that concerned me is the comment made when I said, you know, Indian Trail put up $10 million, or said they were gonna put $10 million. The comment was made that, well, that policy, doing that, pulling $10 million and putting it on a project is being reviewed by legal within DOT. That it's being, and I took that, and maybe Councilman Head he was there with me, they said that practice is frowned upon. Well, if it's frowned upon, why are you still continuing to take that money? And is this a pay-to-play kind of a situation
Well,
where?
I mean, it takes money to build it. It's not a pay-to-play in that you're not a private entity. I mean, these are both government entities, right? We're not aware of any legal issues. As a matter of fact, this current legislation that funds our program encourages local participation and provides information, provides the statute for the bonus allocation, the $5 million rebate for another project. I mean, it's clearly written there in the legislation.
So I'm just repeating what I was told, and maybe that's bad or misinformation or whatever.
I heard the same thing, because during that time, you know, Jerry asked, what if? That was the way it came across. And I actually went over and got Van's card, and then we went back to him. And that was his comments. I've got a question. How many other, since 2011, how many other municipalities have put up $10 million to get their projects?
I mean, I will say that is one of the largest amounts that's been put forth. There are several other towns who have put up money or have agreed to put tolls on a project. And that's really what counts, and that helps increase the score from a prioritization perspective, and then it also returns that money back to the area. I'd have to go specifically look to see what other amounts there are in terms of greater than around $10 million or more, but I can certainly tell you $10 million is on the higher end there.
Yeah, I was going to say, based on those initial estimates, you know, $30 million and putting a $10 million local contribution, I mean, I guess DOT would be nuts to walk away from that.
It is significant, a significant amount of money, no question.
Also, when I did a little bit of research, I noticed that the bond, yes, we passed it in 2011. I saw an article in the Charlotte Observer paper where they had an interview with the previous town manager, Mr. Fivas. And he was quoted in the paper as saying this road was supposed to be open by 2018. So I'm kind of curious where that information came from. And also, was there ever a contract I mean, you know, it's one thing for me to say, hey, I'll give you $50,000 to start on my house over here. Would you start on it without a contract from me guaranteeing that $50,000?
So no. So the comment from Mr. Fivas was made on Mr. Fivas's own cognizance. I mean, without knowledge of the process, I'll have to say. But I will also say that no, there was not a contract. We typically enter into a contract about a year before we go to construction. However, if the town wants to move forward with putting the bond on right-of-way, we could move forward now with the contract. We call it a municipal agreement. It's basically an agreement with the department and the town that would put to pin the terms of that transfer.
So that's why I'm questioning, there's no contract, but the $10 million needs to happen right now for the right-of-way acquisition.
So the commitment's always been there from the town since we started the project. We're not asking for a check for $10 million by the 30th of June. We're asking for the commitment to be recommitted.
When are you asking for the $10 million?
Well, you've told me that it can't wait till 2022, and I'm telling you that we can begin right of way immediately. So when the town, if you recommit, then we'll work out the details with your town manager about the term that you need to get the bond sold, and we'll initiate a contract to pin it.
Yeah, I'm not very well versed in municipality contracts. I just know in our private sector, we have milestones. Whenever we take any project, we have a deposit. You know, and then once you have your design phase and construction phase and startup phase, you're a little different than what you guys have. There's milestones, 20%, whatever.
Right.
That's.
So we don't typically enter into a contract until the town is participating in the cost, or there's a cost share for that particular phase of the project.
If this project is delayed in Indian Trail, what are the overall costs to DOT and CARPO and estimated increased costs? You know, we've had the environmental study done. You've done the design, so that won't change. But you will need to revisit the environmental study, I imagine. There's a cost associated with that. And then with the delayed, there's going to be additional cost of right-of-way, additional cost of construction.
So exactly. So
Wouldn't it be in the best interest to try to help us figure out a solution to make this happen
Sure.
so that we all don't suffer?
And that's why we're here, to dispel any misinformation, to try to give you all the information that you have to make a good decision. And yes, we can work through the fine points of the details with you. But you know, we have to get to a point of commitment as to where we are with that.
I have to smile because when you say, when you help us make a good decision, there's only one good decision for you, and that's to give you $10 million. So, I mean, that's.
Well, that's been the decision up to this point, right? That's been the town's decision up to this point and what the town committed to many years ago.
So we've been operating under that premise.
But let's go back. Let's go back to the conversation that Van had with Councilman Morris and myself. One of the determining factors of all this was that discussion. And that discussion said, we're not sure what's going to happen because it's in legal. And he did say legal, in the legal department. I won't say he came out and said exactly these words, but it was like almost like a bribe. You know, it's almost like back money. And the only reason why it would go through legal is there was something amiss with how this money was being how this money was being arrived. Why would there? I guess I'm going. Let me finish my question.
Okay.
So I want to go back and understand what happened when this information went to legal. What was the determination? Because that was he said it was going to legal.
I can only suspect that Van has never had a town commit to $10 million for a project and then uncommit to $10 million for a project. So what do we do next?
But it wasn't it wasn't presented in that way. It was presented in a way that any municipality, it was a general comment. It wasn't
I'll tell
specific.
you specifically that there is nothing under the table here. We are all in a public forum. That's why we're not meeting in some closed session behind closed doors somewhere. This is all above board. There is nothing to be hidden here.
And Van is my direct supervisor, and so I've spoken to him several times about this, including today. He has never mentioned to me from a legal aspect, so I'm not quite sure, what specifically he's referring to.
Well, I guess you could
follow up.
ask. I mean, that'd be logical to ask him, what did he mean by that? And that'd be a good answer, give us a good answer to what he's saying.
We'll provide a response to Patrick in writing for him to share with you all.
Okay.
I have a few questions, more on the technical side. I'm sorry. Was the project identified to be improved in 2011? Was it rated in 2011? Because as I remember, this is when the town was willing to come up with the money, put it in a referendum for people to vote on it. So my question again, was it identified in 2011 to be improved to 4-lane roadway?
It was identified as a future need, but it did not have funding in 2011. So that's why I say, it was identified in our, I think it's our 2011 STIP or STIP, but it was unfunded. There was no funding for it.
And so, understand, typically, we do a new STIP every 2 years, okay? In 2013, the law changed. That allowed for these bonus allocations, encouraged towns to participate in the cost of transportation, and changed the way we prioritize projects. That happened in 2013, June of 2013. So we had to initiate that process and get a new STIP underway. And so after 2011, the first STIP was not generated and subject to approval until 2015.
But where I'm trying to go with that, Scott, is if it was identified 2011, 2013, we're in 2019 right now. And if we delay this project, if we don't pay the 10 million, we delay this project in 2028. When we do a TIA, we increase the growth rate by 3% to 4% sometimes. So all these years, congestion is getting worse and worse and worse. So whether it's completed in 2025, but look how many years passed so far. So our residents and the congestion is getting worse and worse every day. And the shocking part of it is, let's say we have a tornado, we have an emergency, and we have to use that $10 million, and we can't come up with it. So what is going to happen to that congestion that continue to increase? It's just a technical questions, and it's like the more you delay, the more we're going to suffer out there, and that's a big concern to us.
So certainly there are a lot of future needs in a plan.
Got it.
I mean, a lot of things, well, yeah, we'd love to do that if we had the money. It's a future need. It's out beyond our 10 years. It's nothing that we can afford today, and that's where this project was in our plan in 2011. We cannot move forward on design, right-of-way, anything with the project until we have a funded project, right? We have to know the money's in place to move forward, and that's what happened in 2015, and we've moved forward ever since then. But in 2011, in our plan, it was unfunded.
Okay, but somebody decided that some improvements need to occur to that project
Right.
at that time.
It was a line on a piece of paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another question for you, the funding for the Matthews part. I know, Scott, you're over division that has, I don't know how many counties, so it's the same thing throughout North Carolina. Why don't you keep that money geographically here in Union, border Mecklenburg County? If that money is not used by Matthews, why do you have to shift it to another county somewhere else in North Carolina to cover another project? It's all about geographical So that's it. How does it work? Can you explain that to me?
That money does actually stay within Scott's division.
Right.
It's just, in this case, as I mentioned, we've had a lot of cost increases, and so that money has gone to those other projects that are already in the pipeline, that are about to go to construction, where we've had those cost increases.
So when we get a credit, Matthew says, well, we don't want to build the project this year, we can't, we don't put the money in a bank and sit on it. This is taxpayers' money. It needs to be building roads. So it goes to the next project that needs the money, and immediately is included in the needs for that project to build roads.
Last question. What would happen, Scott, if you end up not having the entire money for the project, DOT, you're short $10 million? What would you do there if you get into construction and all that? Like the same situation where we are right now.
Right, just like at home, if you don't have money to fix the water heater, right, you wait, if you're making money. If you're working, if you're fortunate enough to be working, you work until you save enough money to fix it. And that's kind of what we would be in our program.
No, what I'm saying is
The revenues that we get from gas tax, from user fees, licenses, taxes, tags, associated with vehicles, eventually would pay for the project. But it'll be a delayed delivery.
Yeah, so if you run into any issues after you start real estate acquisition, something happened to the economy, and you're in the middle of construction and something comes up, what do? Do you go find money from another pocket somewhere to bail out the project? I'm just, if something like that happened, what do you do? I mean, can you?
I'm not aware of any project that we've ever had to suspend because DOT ran out of money during construction. We try to make sure when we enter into a contract, it's a complete contract.
And that might mean if we start to enter a contract and we need to fulfill it, but it might mean we have to delay something else in order to fulfill that if cost increases for whatever reason.
That's what I'm.
Right.
You got to get the money from somewhere, so something else got to be delayed.
Correct. And that's the very question we're putting in front of you, and Carpo as well.
One other question. As far as when the construction actually happens on Monroe Road, you're going to be 4 lanes, whatever configuration, all the way up into the Stallings Indian Trail line. Theoretically, if we do not contribute the 10 million and this gets postponed, you're going to build it up to that point and stop.
Basically.
And it's going to cost a lot more money to mobilize all that equipment and to start up another section of the project at a later date. But my question is once you do a 4-lane to there, you've now got a pinch point, a 2-lane coming right out of there. So everyone in the morning who lives in Indian Trail and Wesley Chapel and Monroe who travel that road, it's not just Indian Trail. I need to stress that. It is a lot of other municipalities that access it.
Understood.
When they start piling towards Charlotte on Monroe Road, it's going to be 2-lane till they get to that 4-lane, and then it's going to open up, and theoretically, and they're all going to blast off. In the evenings, when they're returning from 485, and they get to the pinch point right there in Stallings, how well is that going to treat Stallings traffic at that point when you've gone from 4 down to 2? What is that going to do?
It's going to be
As a safety concern as well.
just as you said, it's going to be a pinch point, right? It's going to be a bottleneck.
But it kind of appears that it may be more of a bottleneck for their residents than ours. We're all leaving on 2 lanes going into 4 lanes in
Their residents will be at home, basically. They'll turn on Stallings, Stallings, Potter's Road, they'll turn off on other roads, and they'll be home.
So if Monroe Road does get delayed in Indian Trails municipality, what happens to the intersection at Waxhaw Indian Trail Road that's already an F and Monroe Road? What happens to those intersections?
Nothing.
I think that's a lot of our frustration is a lot of the projects that have been and around Indian Trail and Union County, they go to the bottom. And it seems like the only way to get them to come to the top is not only pay our gas taxes, not only pay those taxes, but to go ahead and dig a little deeper and pay it a little bit more. That's a frustrating position to be in. Because that $10 million we could actually use to pave every street we have in Indian Trail, that's an Indian Trail road, and possibly even take over some DOT streets. But it's one thing to pay for your own roads, and then to also go and pay for state roads as well. That's a tough one.
To put it plainly, had the Indian Trail never committed $10 million, we'd be moving right along. But the
What do you mean by that?
So you put your money in, you took your money out, okay? We would have programmed with everything else and would have been moving forward, but you took your money out. So now we got a $10 million hole. How do you fill a $10 million hole? Well, with $10 million. It's got to come from somewhere. We don't have $10 million that we're sitting on. So the project slides. I'm frustrated by it too.
Well,
I've been looking after this project for 6 years. I've been fostering this project, going to meeting after meeting, coming to town council meetings, going to MPO meetings, fostering the project, moving it along. I am more frustrated than you can imagine.
Well, with a hard
Because this is a big need. It needs to happen. Granted.
Well, with a hard deadline of June 30th, it doesn't give us an option to go to CARPO and see about doing the CMAQ and STBGDA funds in July, with that one-time, multi-million-dollar infusion into CARPO region here. So it's like, got to make a decision here, but if you could have waited a couple more weeks and do a little negotiating with other members of CARPO, and perhaps there was a different solution. And so my question is how firm and hard is June 30th?
So, in order to prepare, I'm just being technical, give you some technical information here. In order to prepare for the release of the STIP, CARPO has to do what's called an air quality conformity analysis. And to make sure that all the projects in the area conform to air quality standards, so they can receive federal funding. That needs to begin, they're looking to begin that process in July. And because this project, whether this project is in the STIP or it's not, will affect that air quality analysis determination. Now, is there anything that says June 30th is a hard and fast deadline? No. But it's to make sure that we know which way, one way or the other, that project's in that analysis or not. Now, I will tell you this, will come up for discussion at the MPO meeting here next week. There's certainly an opportunity to begin that discussion. If it looks like, there's ground on moving this project forward, and as Scott just said, we want this project to move forward. If there's negotiations happening, there's conversation that says, hey, we look like we can find a way to move this forward, we will do everything and work with you guys to the extent possible to make that happen. But just, we've got to see some movement forward is what we're saying.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. One other thing that you said that the frustrating thing I think for Indian Trail is you just said the residents of Stallings would be sitting at home and the Indian Trail people are going to be sitting in traffic, basically, is the question, was the answer. And they're not giving you a dime. But in order for Indian Trail to get what they need, they're going to have to give you $10 million. And and I know we've been all through that, and I know what you're going to say, but it is the frustrating, factor in this whole process. It doesn't seem fair. As a matter of fact, we don't think it's fair.
I know that most of you all were not on the board 10 years ago, or 6 years ago or 7 years ago when you committed this.
None of us were.
Right.
It was like 9 years ago, 9 years ago, so whatever.
So,
But
I understand where you're coming from.
well, thank you guys for coming and listening to our questions, and I hope we can speak again, and I
On more
hope
positive terms.
I hope you have. We can come up with a good decision, just like you. Maybe we can come with a compromise. Is there a compromise?
I think that needs to be worked out. I think that has to go through CARPO. essentially. That's really where the
And that
conversation
may be,
needs to happen.
that might be something that if we can compromise with you, you know, that, I can't speak for council, I can't speak, but thank you.
And we can't speak for CARPO.
Right.
Right? So that's the third party that needs to be a part of this.
We're all trying to come together with a solution that's amenable to everyone to keep this project moving forward. 'Cause we know it's a great need out here, and traffic will only continue to get worse.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Scott.
Okay. We could do something a little unusual here real quick. I want to take a 5-minute break before public comments. I saw the Jimmy John's guy walk in here a long time ago. There's a bunch of sandwiches and stuff in there, and there's pizza. And I would like it if anybody in here, and I don't want, I'm telling you, 5 minutes. Go get you a sandwich or go get something, or it might be time for you to slip out.
Mayor, council, you're now live.
Stay like that.
They need to sign it. Security alert. I'm just, it was up there. I'm sorry. I didn't think about scaring anybody. Okay, let's get the meeting started. Back, and we're going to start with public comments. Let's see what I did with them. Here we go. I am. I was going to read it. She's got my sheet. It's on the back of the public comment.
Over there.
Here we go. Here we go. Thank you for your interest in participating in the public comments portion of today's regular meeting of the Indian Trail Town Council. Please be aware that these meetings are recorded and can be heard by anyone through the internet. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. You may not give your 3 minutes to another speaker to increase that person's allotted time. Comments are to be directed to the entire council as a whole, not individuals. Citizens will be expected to be civil in their language and presentation and act within reasonable standards of courtesy. We ask the audience as well as the speakers to maintain order and decorum in your conduct throughout the public comment period. That being said, you may not engage in slander, name-calling, personal attacks, or threatening or otherwise aggressive speech or behavior that I or council reasonably believe will immediately result in a disruption of the meeting. Finally, we ask you a simple favor. If you have a grievance, concern, or complaint relating to the specific town employee, we respectfully request that prior to airing that grievance here during public comments, you first contact the town manager, the town attorney, or one of us on council with your concern. We respect your right to be heard, and we ask you to respect our town employees' right to a fair hearing on your grievance. First person is is Amanda Falconberry. You would state your name and address.
Amanda Falconberry, Pickett Circle. Good evening, council. On May 18th, there was a budget workshop which was recorded. I wanted to check some of my notes that I'd made at the workshop, so I went to the town's website looking for the recording. Couldn't find anything. So on May 30th, I sent an email asking where the budget workshop recording was. In addition, I have asked for any minutes of the workshop and the presentation you all saw. There has been an ongoing email exchange about this request. I was sent to the May 28th council meeting packet for the presentation. I went and looked. The presentation in that packet is only part of what I saw on May 18th, not the entire presentation y'all all were presented with. As of right now, I can find I am unable to find any record of the May 18th budget workshop. I don't understand why the recording has not been posted and why my request for the recording, any minutes, or the presentation has remained unfulfilled. Thank you.
Michael Falkenberry?
Good evening. Michael Falkenberry, 519 Pecos Circle. It's about to become campaign season once again, and usually political candidates are asked to answer questions regarding their platform, what they stand for, what they're against. Here's an example of a question. As a council member, would you be more concerned with investing in any trail to living or to bring in more commercial development and improve infrastructure, or saving taxpayer money and keeping the rural community feel many moved to stay in Indian Trail for? The answer was, I believe it's mostly important to keep the rural feel and the property taxes as they are now, instead of trying to do something envisioned on some planner's personal wall. This is why people moved to Indian Trail, to live in a rural community and yet enjoy the conveniences of the surrounding areas. It also reminds me of a bait and hook tactic from businesses and people into a community with the promise of having low taxes. That was an answer by a candidate in 2013. Person was elected in 2017. I hope the person was truthful in his answer. Hope he sticks to his convictions and his beliefs. Also, as your public comments policy, I did what you said to do. I sent an email to the Economic Development Coordinator, Gary Evans, asking where the locations for the proposed 3 hotels would be. Never got an answer. In person, during the ceremony for the Memorial Garden, he said he would respond. He did not. I sent an email to the council and mayor, May 31st. No response from any of you either. So again, I'm asking, where are the locations for those 3 hotels? There's no legal issue. He's able to brag about it during the budget workshop. 2 locations already been revealed. Where's the 3rd one? Thank you. Have a good night.
I don't recognize this, your first name, but Miss Avery, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I'm sorry, you had such fine writing. Your first name?
Linda.
Linda.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you for hearing me out this evening. I'm Linda Avery. I live at 324 Braxton Drive here at Indian Trail. I'm a 24-year resident of the area. Michelle Cremus is also with me tonight from Braxton Drive. And we want to say thank you for your response to us earlier when we came to the council in regard to the shortening of the Indian Trail Braxton Drive median. That has been very helpful to make it a safer community, and you acted very quickly on that, so thank you so much for that. Excuse me. We are here tonight actually for a different reason. We're representing multiple residents of our community. They have asked us to come. They have asked if they could come. Many residents are just very much in support of Ryan Smith and this whole median situation that seems to have gotten really out of control, and I think some of that was the unfortunate media coverage that was inaccurate. The HOA has given support to Mr. Smith. We have had many residents that have attended the HOA meeting and shared their support for Mr. Smith. And actually, our HOA president, Mr. Mike Sailors, has sent an email letter to the council people. I think you have copies of that. If you do not, I have some extra copies with me here tonight that I can pass on to you. We just want to, I guess, appeal to your heart in regard to Mr. Smith's situation. He has gone through tremendous distress over this whole ordeal. He is now very distraught about it. He is in jeopardy of losing his job with the city of Monroe as an engineer. He has had financial losses. He has been out of work for 10 weeks. His career has been in jeopardy. And we just feel that this is such a heavy price for him to pay over this situation. And we just ask for your compassion in the way you handle the situation and your moving forward in any way that you can help ameliorate this situation and help him retain his retain his job. If you're able to give support to the letter that Mr. Sailors from our HOA has written, and that would be wonderful. Okay.
Michelle?
Sorry, I'll just hold it.
You're good.
Good evening, and thank you very much for sharing your food with us. So I'm here just to talk to you, I guess. The election's coming up, I guess, from what I hear. And I just want to, I have 2 boys and a daughter, and what I try to tell them all the time, that there's so many important traits, so many important things that you need to have as a person. My job is to raise them to be people that I want to hang out with and that can contribute to the community. And the biggest thing that I tell them is that integrity is so important. And integrity, I tell them, is doing what's right even when nobody's looking. Be a man of your word, be a woman of your word. If you say something, if you make a mistake, own it. If there's a misunderstanding or you made a certain statement such as, Mayor stated he would be in agreement if the resident conducted work at his own expense. That you would then state that you stated that and you would own that. So as you go into this new period and you try to get reelected, or maybe you won't, integrity. I want a leader up there with integrity. I want to know that I can trust you, each and every one of you, that your word is good. That just because you didn't vote and you didn't vote and you didn't vote on one specific item, that what comes out of your mouth is valid and truthful. So I ask all of you to just have integrity as you move forward, because that's what everybody here, everybody on the internet needs, what Indian Trail needs. We no longer need people that aren't going to have our back or support us when we need it most. So thank you. Oh, one other thing. Who do I need to talk to about the crosswalks on Brandon Oaks Drive?
You could send an email. I mean, it's just out of place.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, great. So that's all. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you. I would like to, on the council feedback to the public comments, council's really, I'm just going to refer it over to our attorney to make a statement.
Yeah, sure. I did want to clarify 2 things. First, with regard to the Mr. Smith topic, I have instructed council not to discuss the pending action before Union County courts right now. It is, like I said, pending. There will be that will end at some point, and there will be more information available, but until that time, I have instructed council not to speak on that. Second, I do want to clarify that Mr. Smith is an employee of the city of Monroe. His employment information, status, all that is protected by state law. I've also instructed the town not to communicate with the city of Monroe regarding his employment at this point, because asking them any questions would encourage them to, but we wouldn't get any information, A, because they wouldn't provide it, and B, again, we have to protect the confidentiality of government employees, and that's just part of what we have to do. This is a moving target as time goes on, and we have more information, and the process has moved ahead. I will possibly change those instructions to council, but at this point, I have asked them to let this matter play itself out as it needs to play out in court, and hopefully the resolution will come in the near future.
Thank you. That ends public comments and council feedback. It brings us up to the law enforcement update. Mr. Cobble's not here tonight, and so we're not gonna do it.
Wing it, just wing it.
Brings us to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
All in favor? Unanimous. Brings us to public hearing. Budget hearing FY 19-20, ordinance number 190611-314. Continued from the May 28th, 2019 meeting. Mr. Sadet?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, what we'd like to do tonight is just go over the items that we kind of discussed last meeting, and I'm going to turn it to Jim to take them item by item.
Good evening. Good to be before you again. Tonight, Jim Wadowitz, I'm your finance director. So basically what we have tonight are 6 adjustments to the book that we handed out, the proposed budget that we handed out on Saturday, May 18th. So I have copies if you don't have them, and we summarized them here. I'll be happy to go through them. Patrick, I'll start. So the first of the 6 is an additional position to work under Public Works. This will be a position that will be in charge of parking enforcement, recycling, education, landscaping. This will be reported to Adam. Position was added afterwards. And again, all these adjustments have no impact on the tax rate. Patrick had me research, make sure we had the revenue to offset it. We got some updated information after May 18th on some of our revenues. Sales tax are up, our investment income is up, ABC is up. So we were able to increase our appropriations and offset them with corresponding revenues. So we're safe at 18.5. We don't touch a dime of our fund balance. Last year's audit was 23 million, of which some of it is not available, but this town is basically close to $24 million audited fund balance, which I'm very proud of. It was high when I got here, not that high, and I always said when I leave, I want it to be high too. So that's one of my goals. So I'm proud of that, and Pat keeps an eye on that. The second, number B, is an additional position. This is a liaison for the town manager. We discussed this a little bit at the May 30th meeting. This will be a position that will report to Patrick. We do a little bit of work with Abby, Communications IT. We'll do a little bit of work in the finance department. As you know, we're down. Our department went from 4 to 3. We lost a good person. So this position is projected to start on January 1st of 2020. Patrick, you want to comment on that at all?
No, so just to kind of provide assistance to many different sections in town. So rather than hiring, as an example, an assistant manager or hiring another full-time employee for Jim, kind of this gentleman or lady could assist all of us and kind of be a liaison between all the department. We discussed it, and we thought that it would be a good addition to the town.
Thank you. Now, this is the only one I didn't like, letter C. This one, I'm actually taking appropriations down. I'm taking the raises out of the elected officials, reallocating that a little bit. We had to increase the salary of a communication IT director. Without further ado, I'll go to letter D. Letter D, we decided to increase their debt service. This is a prepayment on an installment loan. We're going to be paying this 3 years early. We had $245,000 in the budget. We're adding another $70,000. This will pay it off. There's a 1%, if we do pay it off, there's a 1% prepayment penalty. That'll be about $3,000, but we'd be saving interest on the 3 years. Moody's loves this. Town manager loves getting debt off the books. This will be the second one in the history of Indian Trail. We took one off this year. So that's in the budget. Letter E is PAL bill. This will be coming out of our PAL bill fund, which is very strong. This allows for monies to correct the Matthews Indian Trail Road. I believe if you look straight ahead, you'll see what Patrick wants to do, traffic calming right out the intersection there outside the town hall with Carolina Courts. Patrick, you want to touch on that? What we're going to do?
Yeah, simply put a device out there to slow down traffic. I think the sergeant in the back could attest that they still drive it at 50 miles per hour sometimes, and we do have a lot of children that cross the roadway, so we will work closely with Chase and Adam and Todd to come up with a device that could slow them. And I think I don't think this is a big budget. I think this probably will range in, will go probably from $25,000 to $45,000, so it's not a big ticket item. We can't do much with the intersections because we have 3 underground pipes that they only have 6 inches of cover on them. This is how we convey the water from this site across the road. So we're limited on drainage and depth. So it has to be a surface device that we could put out there just to force them to slow down. So, and it will not cost a lot of money.
I know it's tough taking a left out of here. I'm up 5:30. So I'll be happy to see that. Letter F is, we put in $75,000 again. We were able to offset it with revenue. This is to design a public parking facility. We called PAL bill. PAL bill said it would not be allowed. Take it out of there. So this is coming out of the general fund. We put $75,000 for design. Again, that would be something where revenue would come eventually.
Location?
Excuse me?
Location?
Downtown area. Simply as you know, we've heard concern from council and many others that this area is going to be very congested as we densify it and trying to meet our vision. So we're proposing that we could have someone. We will do the concept in-house. We will come back to council and show council, you know, what are we proposing. But if we take it to the second level in regard to preliminary design, probably we have to have a structural engineer look at that to give us cost estimate. The final product is a cost estimate and a concept to council, and we'll take it from there.
And lastly, is just we're simply adding we adopted this, the CIP budget for the Chestnut. That was at the May 30th meeting. So this will be in the book, one of our 5 CIP budget ordinances that are ongoing. So another budget in the book. So I'd like to, Alicia Massey's here. I asked her to come. She's been a great help. She's like an assistant to me. She'll do anything I ask her, and I appreciate her. And as Pat said, morale's good. Very happy with the 2 new people and Hayden's promotion. So things are really, I know it's an exciting time here at Town Hall. We appreciate the support of the board as well.
I just would like to see if we missed any item that we discussed last time.
Any comment on anything we missed or anything you want to ask? Anybody?
The only item that was discussed is we discussed $500,000 to take it and spend it on resurfacing. So what we're proposing right now, since we're going to take the money to pay off Creek Park, what we'd like to do is continue working with the state, take over streets from them, and take money to repair the street. And what we'll do, we'll follow up the second year by resurfacing those streets. So we'll take the money, cut the street, do a full depth, fill out everything we need, get it prepared for the resurfacing for the second year. So, and that we don't have to put it in the budget. That is depending on what we get from North Carolina DOT. And I know we proposed before council in the past an area and that you agreed to go ahead and take it and take the money. And was that Taylor Glenn, Todd? Okay, it was Taylor Glenn. So we would like to, every once in a while, just pick up another area in town so we could go ahead and get a hold of that. Maybe after 5-6 years, we'll have certain percentage of all North Carolina DOT roadways. So again, that item doesn't need to be put on the budget, but we discussed it last time.
With that being said, I just want to say good job. Thank you. Alicia, thank you for all you do. Jim, you do a great job. And glad you're both working in Indian Trail, and I'm very happy with our tax rate. No tax increase, 18.5 cents. Best tax rate, I think, of any town its size, probably in the United States, not just North Carolina, but the United States. And the staff operates on a lean, mean, hard-working machine, and you do a wonderful job. I know Monroe probably has 3-4 times the employees that we do, and their budget is a lot higher, their tax rate's a lot higher, and we're real grateful to all of you for all you do. It's because of you. You make us look good, and nothing makes a council happier than the staff making council look good. But we know where it's coming from, so thank you. But with that being said, do I have a motion to?
Mayor Pro Tem, the public comments are still open.
Oh,
so-
gosh, yes. We do. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I do have it. Amanda Falconberry. Thank you for reminding me.
Good evening again. I sent all of you an email with a list of questions and concerns. Hopefully you all received it. I have not received any feedback at this point from it. So I'd like to bring a couple of things to your attention. I was kind of curious why we did away with the Parks and Recs Director's position. We have a number of departments that have that, and I noticed on our organization chart it was gone. I'm not going to read all of these. There are a couple of things that came to mind. In the Communications and Information Technology Department, the IT hardware, less than 5,000, amount doubled. I'm curious, what are we purchasing? What did we need? Why did it double? In the Crooked Creek Department, the event revenue and sponsorship, that estimate also doubled. Where did that figure come from? How did we estimate we're going to double our revenue income? Under the Powell bill, I can say that word, there was an almost tripled amount for the purchase of equipment, new equipment, less than $5,000. Almost tripled? I'm kind of curious, what do we need to buy? What are we purchasing? Under paving and resurfacing, there are a number of projects. I understand we need to resurface. Some of our roads, I drive and it's pothole city. Some of those I'm wondering if we can move or offset into other years to help our budget. Finally, on page 53, if you look at the projection on that page, and I have it here, if you look at the next year, fiscal year 2021, there's a minus sign on that balance of $1 million. That's quite a shortfall. So I was wondering, how are we going to offset that shortfall? And in addition, y'all had a large conversation about this $10 million. Current budget, if I remember correctly, doesn't have that. If you choose to reinstate that, what will it do to your current budget as you're proposing it? And how do you offset the potential activation of the bond this year in this coming budget if I understood correctly. Thank you.
Okay, now, do I have, it's okay, go ahead and get a motion to,
Yes, and that you have to close the public hearing.
oh, let me close the public hearing. It's closed. Okay,
And then you can move for adoption of the budget ordinance and the tax rate.
okay, but for budget ordinance, what, 190611-34? Excuse me, 314. God, y'all are paying attention, man. I'm telling you, that's good. That is really good. That means I'm doing something right, I think, up here. But anyway, do I have a motion to pass this budget?
So moved.
All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you again. That brings us to old business, and we don't have any, so that's going to bring us to new business. Union County Farmers Market, Mr. Evans.
Good evening, council. Jim, I'm glad there's a stop sign at the end of the driveway. It's an inside joke. On a more pleasant note, in your package, you should have a flyer for the Union County Farmers Market.
That was supposed to be in the packet that I, in the cap, okay, I'm sorry.
So you got it, okay. We've one of the things that I've identified when I started this position is that I asked people what they would like to see in Indian Trail, and one of the things was a farmer's market, believe it or not. And we've been very fortunate to be approached by this young lady, Lee Coulter, who heads up the Union County Farmers Market in Monroe. And they have a desire to come to Indian Trail. Having said that, I'm going to let Lee explain a little more in detail what this is about.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. I appreciate it. Mayor Pro Tem and Council, thank you so much for your time and attention this evening. We've got a little bit of lighter, easier lifting. Now we talk about something much more approachable. So I know that all of us are aware that Union County is an agricultural county. We don't have to drive very far outside of our residential subdivision to appreciate the beauty of our agricultural county. And most of what we see, of course, when we drive around are the cornfields, the soybean fields, the wheat fields, and that's what our county is predominantly known for, is growing those commodity crops. What's not so readily apparent, however, is the marvelous array of small farms and market growers that are tucked in between all of those large commodity crop fields. And so it's on behalf of those folks that I am inviting you into a conversation tonight. The Union County Farmers Market, focused on primarily local foods, is about 7 years old now. We're located currently on Skyway Drive, and I'm going to cut to the chase. I know it's late in the evening. We've realized that while we have a wonderful facility, it's not in a great location. We simply don't have the population density to support the vendors in the way that they need to be. And so the good news for us is, as we consider partnering together, is that the brand of local food is extremely, extremely strong in our state. And many small towns, Mooresville, Shelby, Marion, Salisbury, and probably many others, have recognized that inviting a local foods marketplace to partner with the town is a tremendous economic development engine. And so back in the winter, after a very tough season last year, I was realizing the state of where our market was, and I met Hayden, Kramer with Park and Rec, and we had an instant rapport. We have so many shared values, and we began to have a conversation about what it might look like for the county and the town to partner together and have Indian Trail host a farmer's market on Saturday morning. So the purpose of tonight's meeting really is to invite council into this conversation with us. Hayden and I have been talking for several months, and we feel we were on the same page on so many fronts. A farmer's market is great for community building. It's great for getting people outside. It's great for social engagement, all on top of just the pure economics of it. But for me, and what I think is so exciting and why the timing is so good, is really a farmer's market helps build what I call pride of place. And I think when I met with Mr. Sadek a couple of weeks ago, that's what he communicated to me more strongly than anything else, was Indian Trail is working hard to develop pride of place. It's what your downtown, uptown, downtown master plan is trying to develop. And I think hosting a farmer's market on a Saturday morning can be really instrumental in some of those things. So could I entertain questions? I don't want to take up too much time.
Does anyone have any questions? Go ahead, Jerry.
It was a pleasure meeting you at Family Fun Day.
Yes, thank you, I remember.
Yeah. Where would this perceived location be for the farmer's market?
Hayden and I have tossed this football back and forth a couple of times, but because, we considered two park locations, one Crooked Creek and the other one Chestnut Square just across the street. I was really on board with Crooked Creek because it's so popular, it's crowded, and it has all the wonderful park amenities, the dog parks, the splash pad, the ADA compliant playground, the trails. Because the farmer's market, of course, not only operates in that local food space, but it also operates in a very competitive entertainment. We've got lots of entertainment choices for our families in the morning, and so markets all across the region and across the country actually feel the pressure to provide entertainment as part of the marketplace. So by partnering with a park that already has lots of those entertainment sorts of amenities, that's one less thing I have to do. So I was very attracted to the Crooked Creek location, and we walked around and we mapped out, well, maybe here and maybe there and maybe here and maybe not here, and the parking is over here, and so we talked about that. But then more recently, with the expansion and the phased construction going on at Crooked Creek, we began to take a harder look across the street at Chestnut Square. The shelters are already there. They're ideally sized. The bathrooms are right there. The parking is right there. The volleyball court is right there. The apartments are coming right there. Access in and out is already right there. So did I answer your question? I mean, we're really starting to think that maybe a partnership there at Chestnut Square would be ideal.
What kind of cost would be associated with building? Well, it sounds like ideally you would like to use Indian Trail facilities. I think the farmer's market down there, down in Monroe, by that small park, is that private property or is that the city of Monroe property?
Neither. It's county property.
County?
And so, yes, sir, we are wrapped there between Belk Tonawanda and Don Griffin, and our county property sits right there by the railroad tracks. And I don't foresee large cost. I did mention to Mr. Evans that there are a couple of places where I can easily identify friction, and one of those is access. Of course, we need to make it as easy as possible for our vendors to get in at 6 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. And we have observed that access road, but I can't imagine right at this moment how vendors would be able to unload their trucks really easily without driving on the grass on the quad. And I don't want to do that. So I would need some help imagining how that would work.
Are you locked into a contract with the county property right now?
No, we're a county-sponsored farmer's market, so they pay my part-time salary. I have a little operational budget. I I foresee that that would just come with me.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have several questions, and one of the problems I see with doing it at one of the parks is naturally it's going to be in the summertime because that's when.
That's the season, that's the peak season anyway, right?
That's naturally, and you understand that that's also the busiest time in the parks, and that's probably a reason you want to do it too, but it also may interfere with what's going on in the parks. And Hayden, that's kind of your jurisdiction as to whether or not, you go out to the park and there's no parking places now, or does that happen? Or how full is the park already? I guess listen, I want to make this, I'd like for this to happen. I'd like this to happen for you. And if the parks aren't, going to work, what may be better, but.
Absolutely. So as Lee mentioned, this isn't the first time that we've met. We've talked several times. Walked the property, had a great meeting with Patrick a couple of weeks ago. For us, we think it's a natural partnership. Again, it brings some folks to the park, similar to how Family Fun Day brings people to Crooked Creek Park, and they say, "Wow, I had no idea that this was there." With the proximity to 74, with the proximity to Matthews Indian Trail Road, Chestnut Square Park seems to be a natural fit. Again, with all the amenities that are there. Looking forward into the future, it's something that simply we would block off that time so that no other, if you wanted to go out and rent a shelter for a birthday party in the morning time, we could block that off. It would still be accessible for the residents during the day. But obviously a farmer's market is a quick in, quick out type of deal, meaning it's not a 9 to 5 operation, it's a 8 to 1 operation, which means that it wouldn't interfere with the majority of our shelters and things of that nature. As it comes to events, again, I think it's a natural tie-in, meaning that, if we needed to relocate the dog festival to another part of the park or something of that nature, obviously we work together to say, hey, look, this is our major event. Looking at our schedule, our major events do not interfere with Saturdays at Chestnut. We have an Easter egg hunt, which is typically earlier in the year, just how Easter falls. We have a dog festival, again, typically very beginning of May. And then the rest of the events there are Fridays, movie nights, Tuesday event for National Night Out, and then larger events occur at other locations.
Also getting ready to build a football field over there too.
Correct.
Which I hope is going to be a big draw for that area also.
Correct. So
and I'm just I'm just trying to play devil's advocate, and it worries me somewhat that the parks were built for purposes of parks, and I like your idea. I'd like for us to find a spot for it, but I don't know that I'm 100%, excited about doing it in the park, unless you can assure us that and I don't think really what's going to happen with the football field, or how much we're going to, how many people we're going to draw there, and here this will really excite you. What if we did it right out front of the town hall? I mean, which is, nothing's usually here on Saturdays. It's just, you have different opportunities, but you may steer clear of the park, or God forbid if Carolina Courts has a big event, what kind of traffic and parking and all that concerns, and they do have those concerns on Saturdays also. So those are all, I think, all of the things that you got to consider. But I would love to see it. It's food again, man. I love good ripe tomatoes and cucumbers and all that good stuff. So.
And one of the things I just need to underscore is what Hayden said, is people and vegetables, fresh vegetables, wilt after about 11 o'clock. So a local foods market is an early in, early out kind of a thing. And we've talked many times now about how this will be a collaborative project, and we want to support and amplify each other's best efforts. We don't want to step on each other's best efforts. What's really appealing, Mayor Pro Tem, about Chestnut Square is it's ready to go. It's just ready to go. The shelters are a perfect size. The restrooms are right there. The parking is accessible. The other park amenities are there. In other words, we wouldn't have to build a shelter. We wouldn't have to deal with the random aesthetic of individual collections of individual tents. So, you're right. It's a decision. There's a lot of things to consider. And
Very good. I'll be excited about it. I think Mike has some question for you too, but.
Oh, okay.
But I'll just, I don't want to discourage other people from coming or turning away an event that we might already have there. Maybe we won't. Maybe it'll work out perfectly, and maybe it's something we should try. It's not like you're stuck with it once you get in there. Mike?
A couple things. First, I'm thinking of, we have a vegetable stand right there. Excuse me. Thank you. We would be taking, potentially taking money away from some of our residents. I know there's a vegetable stand on Old Monroe Road, just past the food line, heading west on the left-hand side. I'm trying to think of what.
Simpson's Produce.
Simpsons, yes. Wow, is that connected to the Simpsons and?
They're brothers.
Okay.
Cousins, excuse me.
I figured it had to be. Are there any others? I'm just thinking of what financial impact we may have on some of our residents. And then the financial impact on Indian Trail. You said that there would be a cost. Your salaries, is there any other cost?
just whatever my imagining is that the cost would be relatively minor, and that would just be whatever modifications we might need to make over at Chestnut Square so that trucks are not driving on the grass.
Right.
Right. And so that would be it. But I think to your concern about the produce stand, I actually think that we will improve his sales. And the reason I say that is because of brand awareness and brand appreciation. Mr. Simpson does a really good job at what he does. We bring far greater variety, so we would not necessarily be selling the kinds of things that he offers, but we will raise his brand awareness by bringing our products and our niche market kinds of products to Indian Trail.
Okay.
And I invite you to come out any Saturday, 8 o'clock, see what we have. Anything else? And I think our next steps would be to get all of the decision makers at the table, our county, my county manager, my board of advisors, Park and Rec, council decision maker folks. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming. Okay. IT Parks and Rec Committee, member reappointment consideration, Mr. Kramer.
Good evening again. So we have two seats that are becoming expired at the end of the month. Both of these gentlemen have been on the committee for a while and seek to remain on the committee. Both have applied. It's our professional opinion that the board is stronger with them than without them. So we have two names: a Mr. Brian Olin, who currently serves as our chair, and a Mr. Alex Sayer, who have again reapplied prior to their term expiring, that are interested in again continue to serve on the board.
I'll make a motion to approve both of them.
Mm-hmm.
All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. That brings us to discussion items, which we don't have any, so we don't have anything to discuss. Brings us to the manager's report.
One item is I have not been serving the manager's report recently, but I wanted to include Abby and Brandy, so we should be sending out one this week, hopefully by Friday. We just, I'll probably have Abby to take a stab at it for one time and see if she could fit it within her time. If not, we will continue working together on that. So we're trying to get the two lovely ladies on board as quickly as possible. So that's all what I have tonight, unless council has any questions.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, sir.
Brings us to council comments.
Mr. Head.
First of all, thanks for everybody coming. It's been quite a long meeting. I want to welcome Abby and Brandy. Hayden, congratulations on your appointment. I think it's well-deserved. A lot going on. We, as I'm sure Councilman Morris will speak more about the Old Monroe project. We've got a lot to think about. I think what we found out tonight is we've got a lot more information. And we will, as always, the good thing about this council is that we spend a lot of time talking to each other one-on-one to make sure that everybody knows what we're trying to do. So we'll come up with the right decision there. Again, thanks for everybody coming. Long meeting, and drive home safe.
Ms. Howe.
The events we had at the park the last 2 times have been just awesome. Hayden, I know everybody that worked it is good, but your management of it was excellent. And I think you wrote a note and said it was, there were 2 events, and yeah, where you said there was no hang-up on anything. It was very smoothly taken care of. I want to thank you for that. Thank everybody for coming, and I'm glad the budget's approved. Now we can get to work on some projects. Thank you.
Mr. Cone.
Yes, I just wanted to say, and this is for you, Hayden, I was at the park on Saturday with my grandchildren and sitting right by the Coke machine, over there by the, okay, you know what I'm talking about, that, yeah, there you go. It's been a long night. But anyway, there was a guy working on that machine, and his name was Greg Wren. And naturally, we struck up a conversation. And I know you know who Greg is. He's president of Food Concepts. And so we started talking about the parks. And he told me that he does 7 or 8 parks around the area. And he goes, I want to tell you that this is the best of all the parks. He said it's the best, most talked about. It's by far the best run. And he just went on and on and on. And so we had a great conversation. It lasted probably 15, 20 minutes. And I wanted to tell you that because you do a good job. And you know how proud I am of you and the parks and all the people that work with the parks. So kudos to you. Also, Family Fun Day, you remember last year I couldn't come to Family Fun Day. That was because my sister's old and I had older and I had to go to her birthday party, which I enjoyed. But anyway, and it was at the beach, so I had to do that too. I'd throw that in there. But I enjoyed that thoroughly. Came back twice and sat down and watched those fireworks. And I tell you what, man, those fireworks were amazing. Absolutely amazing. And I've heard from people that saw it from all around, and they talked about it. So, again, man, loved it. Town loved it. What do we have, maybe 10,000 people?
That's our best guess.
About 10,000 people. And also, you know, I know it was much improved. I heard from last year with the parking, it's probably 90%. You know, so you got about 10% more to go. But hey, that's live and learn, and you're doing a great job. I'm just happy to be here and happy that I live in Indian Trail and get to work with you guys. And I'd like to thank for everybody for coming. And I'll pass it on to I bet it's Mr. Morse, isn't it?
Bet it is.
Well, thank you, everyone who's still here, and those that did come out and left a little bit early. I'll start with Hayden. I think that was, congratulations on your promotion. I think it's well-deserved. I've heard nothing but positive things from the community. You're well-liked, and you're respected. And so I'm happy for you and happy for the town of Indian Trail. The farmer's market, yes. I have journeyed up there to Matthews behind Renfro's, a little farmer's market. And man, we'd get up early in the morning and we'd place our orders actually with like Windcrest Farms or an organic farm down in South Monroe. But they would come up there and the place would be packed. And it was competing for parking spots. Food was great, very, very fresh, organic, you know where it's coming from, and it does support your local economy. Yes, I could probably go down here to Sweet Union and go through that place, but that is not fresh produce by any stretch of the imagination. And I think that the location is important. So, you know, maybe the park might not be the best choice for a variety of reasons, but I think that this is something that, at least myself, I'd like to try to figure out a way to make it work, if at all possible. I think also maybe needs some higher visibility, but I'm not in the farmer's market food business. Anyways, I'm very supportive of that. I'm thankful that NCDOT did take the time to come out here and speak with us tonight and give a little bit more clarity. It's too bad it's so late in the process, but I'm hopeful, just due to some side conversations that we had and some things that are coming through CARPO that, you know, we'll see how it works out. Never give up until it's over, but we are going to work hard at reaching out to our other municipality representatives and hopefully convince them to what I feel is to do the right thing. And as was said earlier, I cannot comment on the Braxton Drive, Brandon Oaks situation. I do know, though, that I've been frustrated myself with traffic on Indian Trail Unionville Indian Trail Road, to the point that I've almost wanted to go out there and build a couple speed humps just to slow them down. But I've been advised I better not do that either. So, and with that, I wish you all, and welcome, ladies. Really excited to have you here in the Indian Trail, and please let us know what we're doing wrong when we are.
No.
And thank you, everyone. It's good to see Miss Lorraine tonight. I haven't seen her in feels like ages. It's been quite a few months. But y'all have a great night, and thank you.
Okay, well, that brings us to some good news. We have a closed session tonight. If you guys would like to, you could just stick around and wait for us to come back out.
There'll be pizza?
Yeah, pizza. No.
No.
Thanks for coming. Abby and Brandy, thank you for being here. I'm so happy you're here. And
Make a motion to go into closed session.
yeah, move that we go into closed session in accordance with NCGS 143318.11A3 and NCGS 143-318.11A5 to establish and instruct the staff or agent concerning the negotiation of the price of terms of a contract concerning the acquisition of real estate property and to protect the attorney-client privilege.
Motion.
So, make a motion to go into closed session. All in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you, Sergeant.
Can I have a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
All in favor? Unanimous.
Who is it?
David.
Hey, can I have a motion to close?
Make a motion.
All in favor?
I didn't hear the motion. You made the motion?
Close.
the motion to come out of closed session.